What is up, everybody? Michael here, bringing another video today, and I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Donovan Erskine, and we are so excited to bring you another episode of the Woodsboro Retrospective. Today, we're talking about Scream 5. We are basically 1 year out from the release of Scream 5. Happy New Year to everybody that is also watching as I adjust my camera for a second. Hopefully, everyone had a happy holidays. We are back to talk all things Stab, Scream, and sequels. Donovan, how are you doing, my friend? I love your shirt. You look good.
Yeah, so I'm doing great. I had to whip out the Stab 8 shirt written and directed by Ryan Johnson, who we'll talk about at some point during this episode
Almost
for
definitely.
sure. Yeah, I'm giddy for this one. I've been looking forward to talking about Scream 5 at length since we started doing the Woodsboro retrospective. We chatted about it a little bit on Chew on This, but we're finally doing the deep dive.
Yeah, that was a good time. That's kind of what spurned this whole thing on. If you haven't seen that episode of Chew on This where we had Donovan on, that's where we got into the nitty gritty of Scream, really for the first time talking about it with each other. And Scream 5 at the time, obviously, was a heavy topic of discussion because we were only at the time a couple months out from seeing it. And the journey there to seeing Scream 5 in the theater. January is my birthday month. I'll always go to a theater, at least watch one movie on my birthday. I usually go by myself in the morning, catch an early showing of whatever movie is out. And thankfully, Scream 5 came out right before my birthday. So I got to give it a watch then. Best present before a great day with friends and family. I one of the most fantastic things I could have ever asked for. Followed up by watching it with both two other groups of friends that weekend. Absolutely adore this movie. I was so excited for it, and it lived up to most of my hype. I mean, it ended up better than I thought it would be, quite honestly. I don't know how you felt about it, Donovan, and what that was like for you going into it.
Yeah, man, I was dying to see this movie before it came out just less than a year ago. I still remember it was roughly like in 2019 they announced that Spyglass Media had acquired like the rights to make Scream movies, that they'd be bringing the franchise back, and just thinking like we're actually gonna get a new Scream movie after all these years of like the whole will they won't they. I know things were really complicated when Wes Craven passed away. The TV show came out. The fact that we were actually getting a new proper modern Scream was something I could not wait for. I remember when they released the first poster, the title card with like the blocky font with the red kind of behind the text. I remember when they announced that Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox would come back. So for it to all live up and exceed like my expectations was amazing. And I've seen it many times now. I think I've seen it 5 or 6 times at this point, and it gets better every time. So I love this movie. It's my favorite Scream sequel. Overtook 4, I think.
Put the claim on it now, man. Put the claim on it now. Yeah. We were talking before we started recording about this, and honestly, like with every rewatch of this movie, I adore it more and more. The small problems I have with it slowly fade away more and more with every rewatch. And yeah, it's getting close to beating Scream 2. I think Scream 2 just held so much resonance with me because it was the first one I watched, and it's the one I grew up on. It's the one that started my love for this. So I feel like it's just hard to say that I enjoy this movie more, but I freaking love this thing. And it is a very small gap in between them, for sure.
Yeah, and even when we did the Scream 2 episode and you rewatched it, you were like, yeah, you're like, this is my movie still. It's
Yeah.
really hard to pit them against each other. But yeah, this is an excellent one. And for it to be the first and for now the only Scream movie not directed by Wes Craven, I just think that directors did such a good job. It's Bentley Open and Tyler Gillette, Radio Silence. The Ready or Not guys, they do such a great job at kind of honoring that legacy, giving the franchise that modern feel, and then kind of pushing it into a new era.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed Ready or Not. I thought it was a great film. I can't wait to see what Samara Weaving does in Scream 6. And
Oh
I
boy.
was like I said, I was really looking forward to this. I did fear that without Wes, that a lot of the charm of this series would be lost upon new writers and new directors. And my one, I don't want to say it's a critique per se, because I just spewed about how much I love this movie, but it doesn't feel like a Wes Craven movie for large chunks of it. And I think in watching it, I honestly feel like it's better off for that. I think initially when I first gave it a watch, I was like, it's Scream. I love this, but there's just something missing. And in rewatching it many times, I think you mentioned you watch it 5 times. I'm somewhere around 5 or 6 as well after today, and I realized that their adoration for the series shines through using their style enough for where Wes's style was so perfect for what Scream 1 through 4 were, and they're always going to be special because of that. And this new series or Requel series of Scream, or just sequels in general of Scream, I think are taking a different approach. And Scream 6 looks to be a lot darker and more menacing. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it if they're going to try something fresh and different every time. I felt like this was the perfect line between paying an homage and kind of recreating sequences from the original and doing a new thing as well.
Yeah, I do think there's great callbacks to past movies. There are moments where they're definitely doing their best Wes Craven impression, but they also inject a lot of their own style into it. There are one or two very specific story decisions that I know they deliberately made so that they were outside of the Scream formula that I'll chat about once we get into the plot here. But yeah, it's 2 thumbs up for me. I love this movie.
Yeah, I think without further ado, man, let's jump into it. This movie pulls no punches immediately and quickly shows its face and just gives you Roger L. Jackson right off the rip, a phone call, just like the original. But this time we have Tara Carpenter, played by Jenna Ortega, who is, I mean, we've already sung the praises of her probably on Chew on this, but what a phenomenal year she has had. What a phenomenal next many years she'll have probably with the rate her career is going. She's phenomenal in this movie. Just want to say right off the rip, probably my favorite new addition to the cast of Scream.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I don't say that lightly either because I love the new cast of Scream, and I'm going to gush about the other characters as well. But yeah, Jenna Ortega, whoever in the casting department signed that deal, for her to be one of the leads, the face of the new franchise is an excellent choice. She's great,
Yeah.
and like you said, who would have thought that Scream would just be the beginning for her 2022
Right.
with X was amazing, Wednesday, which is breaking all sorts of records for Netflix now. I'm sure that'll be back. But yeah, we come in on this quiet, sleepy suburban Woodsboro home where Tara Carpenter is. I want to note the song that's playing in the background when we first see her. It's called True Love by Duran Jones and the Incantations. I don't know who picked it, but I love that song. I heard it in the movie first, and I added it to my playlist. I listened to it all the
Same.
time.
This whole soundtrack, honestly, I have a couple of soundtrack mentions coming up as well. Very great. Very both paying respect to the 90s nostalgic feeling music at points and also modernizing it, giving us some new stuff, which I really appreciated.
Exactly. And just like the original Scream, the phone is ringing as the movie starts, right? As we come into the house, we've got the classic landline. Even in 2022, some folks still have landlines. She's ignoring it. She's texting someone on her phone. We see it's Amber, her friend, who their relationship was a lot different in the original script of
Yeah,
this
I was going to
movie.
say, we should talk
So
about that because I put right here implied relations, because the whole movie, it feels like there is maybe some romantic thing going on between them. Maybe not. I don't know. So we should probably talk about what the original plan for their storyline was, I suppose.
yeah, they were originally love interests, girlfriends. I don't know if it was I guess it was because she does say girlfriend in the original script that I read. But yeah, and I guess somewhere along pre-production they decided to just make them best friends, which I think is an interesting choice because there are certain like beats and moments in there where I'm like, if you have the context in your head, like, oh, they were originally going to be romantically involved, this hits harder, or this is a bit harsher. So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear about the decision to reverse that.
Yeah,
Before finishing the project.
it does seem odd because they leave so much in that feels like it's implying that in some way already, and it feels like why not just outright say it or just not even go there at all. It's very odd how they approached it. I wouldn't complain about that per se because it doesn't affect the movie in any way, but it is just kind of odd. I feel like it would have added for sure to that character dynamic a little bit more.
But something I do love just right off the bat, and it's not something that you really pick up on the first time you're watching, but I love that one of the first things we see Tara do is she like goes for her inhaler as she's like texting,
Mm,
and we're just like establishing early like yeah, this character's got asthma,
yeah, of
inhaler. I guess it's Chekhov's inhaler. It'll come back at the end of the movie. It'll be very
course.
plot significant.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, she's texting Amber about coming over. Her mom's not home. Phone's ringing. She's ignoring it. And then eventually she just decides to answer because the phone keeps ringing.
Yeah,
And we hear that sweet, iconic voice of Roger L. Jackson as
Roger L. Jackson,
Ghostface.
baby. Yeah. Oh man, and he's fantastic in this movie. I feel like he gets a lot more to do than in the past, maybe two movies even, with his voice.
Maybe.
Yeah, and obviously always does a phenomenal job. I love too, like the start, just like the first, where it doesn't get into it right away. He takes his sweet time with it, acts like, he's in Tara's mom's AA group, something like that. And she's texting Amber,
Yeah.
like, oh, I think this is my mom's boyfriend and whatnot. Um, and right before this, too, I want to mention, I really love, and in talking about this whole series, the killer's planting seeds. We're not going to bury the lead here. We're going to spoil the crap out of this movie, obviously. Amber is one of the killers. And the seeds that are being planted very early on, love it. Small little details like Wes, the implication that it could be him like blowing up her spot or being weird and like planting that seed.
Yeah.
And also the whole eventually when the phone call does take a turn before the trivia like classic Scream begins, the Ghostface mentions that Amber's phone is cloned, which is something that is so preposterous and crazy that could never happen. And you just slowly
Such a movie
realize as you
thing.
rewatch the movie, it's okay, then she probably just texted from her phone or gave it to the other killer or something like that, and it's fine. But yeah, very funny watching that scene on the first watch and be like, he cloned her phone? What?
Yeah, it is like this isn't Mission Impossible. But yeah, I noticed when and I got this the second I first watched the movie when Ghostface calls Tara, he says that his name's Charlie, and he's like, "Can you tell your mom that Charlie called?"
Mm,
And this franchise is riddled with references to itself, to other horror movies. It feels like these things never happen on accident when they just drop random names or reference like that. And
definitely.
obviously, as we talked about in our last episode, Charlie was one of the killers in Scream 4.
Ah,
And I just thought that was an interesting decision. I was like, was that just like a fun little
yeah,
script homage? Like he just calls
yeah.
himself Charlie because Charlie Walker was one of the
It's
killers in
true.
Scream 4.
And and
Um,
this killer would definitely be a fan of Charlie Walker, so makes sense.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And the
Checks
name
out.
never comes back. It doesn't have any like meaning in the script. It's just arbitrary decision. I thought probably
Mhm.
was just a fun little nod for fans.
Yeah.
But like you said, I love the slow build of tension, right? Where Tara's still like smiling, she's having fun on the phone. She's like, God, this is so silly. And then I like how you can feel Ghostface like turning the conversation where he wants, where he's like, it's like she says you love movies, but like not just any
Mm,
movies. She says you love scary movies.
yeah.
And sometimes she wonders, what's your favorite scary movie? And I remember being in the theater, and when he says a line for the first time, the theater being like, oh,
Yeah, of
everybody
course.
knowing what was coming, getting excited. And we're kind of off from there.
Yeah, and this begins this whole movie's take on the horror genre, perhaps Radio
Oh
Silence's
yes.
take on the horror genre, perhaps a satire on it. I think this movie has provided an interesting discourse of people debating the intentionality about a lot of even the title just being Scream and not Scream 5. People have been talking about that since the movie came out. I see it popping back up again now, more recently with Scream 6 coming out. And Tara begins this discussion of the horror movies that she does enjoy, elevated horror movies like The Babadook, The
Yeah.
Witch, Hereditary, things of that nature. And I guess the implication is that these are things that are more character driven, slow burn films, eerie atmosphere, not really like a slasher like Scream or Stab would be. Um, and I like this whole thing that they're talking about. I don't know if I would personally call those movies elevated horror per se, just because I feel like all this falls under one horror umbrella and there are subgenres within it. I feel like there are better subgenres to classify most of those movies. But I do think that horror very clearly, especially since Scream 4 in between these movies releases took a drastic, crazy turn. I think we had many bad years in the early and mid 2010s, followed by a great turn of many good horror movies like the ones that Tara mentions in this scene. And the landscape changed. Slashers aren't really a hot commodity anymore. We don't really see them all too often. I can't even really think of any other. Maybe Fear Street is like the only other recent movies I can think of really that are like slashers to the bone. There have been like big releases. So it is interesting to see them maybe not take a jab at it, but comment on the evolution of the horror genre and what the young kids are into these days. You know what I mean? They love it. They're eating it up.
That's why I love this so much. And this is when I first was watching this movie, this was like the scene where I was like, they get it. I was like, they get like what Scream is and what it does with just
Yeah.
being referential to what modern horror is. When she says that when she's trying to describe elevated horror to Ghostface, and she says it's scary with complex emotional underpinnings, not schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares. It's great. That is exactly what like a 17, 18-year-old like film kid would say today.
New
Like
letterbox user coming on the
literally,
scene.
yeah. I was like, there are so many people that would like verbatim say that if you ask them, like, oh, do you like horror movies? Like, what kind of movies do you like? Why not? Which is great. And I mean, I love those movies too. I don't think it's like a takedown of The Babadook or It Follows.
Yeah.
Those movies are awesome. But it is just fun to kind of poke fun at how the way we look at horror has evolved, right? Because you go to the original opening in Scream 1 with Drew Barrymore's Casey Becker, and it's all about like Halloween, and they're talking about Psycho and all the slashers, and everyone loves that stuff at the time.
Yeah.
And now slashers are seen as kind of cheesy, old 90s, kind of out of style. So it's fun seeing that reflected.
Sadly, yeah.
Sadly, but beautifully, this is a great one, right?
Thankfully.
Which is awesome. And then eventually Ghostface starts talking about the original stab and how it opens with the killer talking to a woman on the phone. She doesn't know what's going on. And then when he drops that he knows her name is Tara, that's when you realize, or when Tara realizes that like shit is serious.
Yeah.
And I love her going to like lock the door on her phone because we're getting more tech knowledge
Such a great
in Scream movies.
Yeah, such a great tension builder too, with the flipping on and off. And I mean, obviously, we've probably given these movies way more thought than the general public has, and I don't blame anyone for thinking that elements of this movie are dumb, especially after only watching it once. This whole alarm and lock scene works better for me every single time I've watched it. But I just take the implication that Amber is somehow involved with it. They're best friends, they're girlfriends, whatever it may be, and that she probably has her Wi-Fi or some shit. You know, she's close to Tara, so she probably knows some shit about her house, and you know, it could happen. So I'm not gonna fault the movie for having this great set piece in it and great tension building.
I dug this, and I remember that was actually something they focused on in the trailer was the leg locks going on and off. I thought that was great. It's a good tension builder. Even the part where there's like a beat of silence and Tara gets another text message from Amber, and it's like, you should answer it. And then her phone's ringing. And just like the realization of the audience, like, oh shit, that is not like Amber texting her right now. And then this isn't Amber. And she's like, she texts her like, answer the phone, bitch. Which I thought was funny.
You gotta pick it up. You gotta do it.
Yeah. But it's time for Stab movie trivia, which is such a great callback to the original, which was horror movie trivia that Casey had to do. And obviously he's gonna ask about the Stab movies. She's like, I don't know these movies. Again, she's like asking about Hereditary, The Witch, It Follows. I love her Googling the IMDb for the cast.
Finding Heather Graham played Casey back in the day.
This
is a great sequence, dude. And I also think I'm going to mention a scene that I really don't care for in this movie. It's like one of the only scenes that grinds my gears in terms of exposition dumping. And I really think that this scene, on the other hand, does a fantastic job of, if you've never seen Scream, you don't know what Scream is. I showed this to my mom, who probably hasn't seen the first Scream since I was like a child without me, you know, at some point on TV. She had only seen 2 prior to us watching 5. And she was thoroughly caught up in that one moment. And that scene, that proved to me right then how effective the use of the trivia and callback to the original is, while also providing that reference and giving you that historical information context needed to fully enjoy the story of this film, really.
Dude, you're so right. Again, I've watched this movie 5 or 6 times and never even thought of how that is just clever exposition, right? If you're not familiar with the Scream lore, you didn't do some crazy binge before the new one came out. They tell you, they're like, "Oh, who was the original main character? Sidney Prescott. She lived on
Yep.
Elm. Gail Weathers wrote the book. Billy and Stu were the killers." Yeah, it's actually a really good point. I haven't thought of it like that. And that's
Yeah.
all critical information going into the rest of the story here. I love that the final question, which is who's the killer in the original stab, and then she's like, "Oh, it's Billy Loomis," and it's a trick question because there's two killers, which again is shades of when Ghostface asked Casey who was the killer in Friday the
There
13th,
you
and she's
go.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's Jason Voorhees." Everyone knows that. No, it's Pamela Voorhees because Jason doesn't show up until the sequel. Um, I love those trick questions for characters that are smart, that know a lot about the subject, but
Yeah.
even in those situations, you can screw up, and then shit gets real.
This is. I mean, seeing this scene in the theater for the first time. I mean, I knew we saw the trailer obviously before this. We all knew that Tara was going to get attacked. It was going to be bad news for her. We knew that she would probably make it out of this because it's Jenna Ortega, but not much beyond that. So when she starts grabbing the knife, she's like, "Amber, I'm coming," running out the door, and then Ghostface is just immediately there. Ooh, what a little chill that gives me.
It's
So good.
such a classic Ghostface moment, right? Because he loves misdirection. I think of like Scream 4. I didn't say I was in your closet, So he kind of lured her into that to think that he was across the street, lurking around Amber's house. And then she opens the door, he's just right there, and gets like gash across her stomach. And I know we sung her praises up top, but Jenna Ortega is acting here, man. When she is like truly like helpless and she's like shaking, backing up with the phone, like you can feel the seriousness in that moment. She is very doing very well. And fun fact, this was actually the first thing they shot for this movie was the opening sequence, which isn't normal for folks that don't know the ins and outs of filmmaking. You usually shoot all out of order. But this cold open was the first thing they shot, and it really sets the tone. I think if you went in having concerns like this might be a hot ass mess, this is like letting you know like you're in good hands.
Most definitely.
For what's happening next. And then, man, Ghostface brutalizes Tara when he gets into that house.
I mean, okay, so first, like you said, he gives her a slash across the stomach. She's backing up. She's freaking out. And like you said, dude, we give Oscars for just like a scene in a movie. Jenna Ortega would get the Oscar for this one scene because she gave insane performance. I mean, truly pure terror. And I think it adds to the element of this movie that you said, like setting the tone clearly, so very clearly. These are Ghostface or plural ghost faces that you should be scared of, that are very, very dangerous. And he gives her another call, and he asks her, "So you think do you think I made it inside before you could rearm?" And just immediately pops out, stabs her, throws her on the ground. And we get a psycho music cue when he breaks her leg. I mean, it is just like horrifying. Absolutely horrifying watching poor Jenna Ortega get like brutalized like this. It immediately just unsettling, messed up, and you're like, okay, this movie's gonna pull no punches. She gets stabbed through the hand. I mean, this is probably not the most gory, but the most violent Scream movie, if that makes sense. If what I'm saying makes sense, if you can catch my drift.
I do, and man, it's so brutal and not hard to watch, but it's rough. And I think a lot of slashers usually have like a lot of cocky characters, people that you almost in a morbid way like seeing killed or attacked by the killer. And I think something Scream has done very well is having sympathetic characters. So when Tara's screaming for her life and terrified, you feel bad because you're like, this character is like horrified. She's not an asshole. She wasn't like taunting anyone. And here she is being beaten and stabbed over and over again in her kitchen. And then as she's like crawling, and I love the shot on the ground where she's like crawling to the door. You can see the police lights coming. Ghostface flips her over, brings the knife up, and then we slash the title card, Scream, which I think this might be my favorite cut to title card in the franchise.
Oh, I think so too. I think so too.
Good. And maybe it's my bias because I love the song choice where we get Just Us.
So my notes right here. DJ Khaled says it.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So good. Last thing I'll say about it, I'll let you go, but like maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think that's also a genuinely clever song choice. Like that song's a
Mm,
banger, but Just Us is it's an interpolation of Miss Jackson by Outkast, which
yes.
was a classic 90s song
Oh, so true. I've
made
never
modern
given it that thought.
again, made modern again by DJ Khaled and SZA. Scream being a 90s classic coming back to the modern day.
Wow.
I could be giving them too much credit there, but that's how I read into it.
No, let's give it to him. That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
song's
I
also
love that.
just great.
Yeah, both songs I
It's
love
refreshing.
so much. Yeah, I mean, what a great opening, like you already said. Jenna
Mhm.
Ortega absolutely freaking kills it. I also want to mention that we do hear a little bit of the killer's natural voice and grunts in this scene when she's fighting back as well. You get to hear some of the male killers who we won't touch on quite yet, but we get to hear some of his grunts and moans and whatnot as he's getting beaten up a little bit by Tara here, which is a nice touch. I always like rewatching
Mhm.
these movies and you're like, oh, okay, this is who this is. And this movie allows for that a lot more to decide or figure out who's doing what kills. I feel like it's much easier to figure out the majority of the kills in this movie. That's what you're into in this film, just because of how things are located, the grunting, the ending,
Yeah.
especially. Really love the way this all flows logically. And like you said, banging intro, banging shot to a title card, Just Us plays. And we get the introduction of Sam Carpenter, Tara's sister, and Richie. Um, I feel like we should talk about the elephant in the room first about Sam Carpenter and what we feel about Sam Carpenter before we talk about the rest of this movie, so we can just get it out of the way.
Okay.
Um, Melissa Barrera. I'm a big fan of In the Heights. I'm a big fan of this movie, obviously. I wasn't blown away by her performance in The Heights. I do like her in this film. I think after the first watch of seeing Jenna Ortega kind of like, and other cast just kind of capturing so much of their moments, it was hard for me to really appreciate Melissa Barrera's performance. But with rewatches, I've honestly come around a lot to it. And I do feel like she has a 90s acting method to her too, in some of her stoicness, which people have obviously critiqued to high heaven, and some of it I think is valid a little bit, and in some of the line deliveries here and there. But I do think it adds to it, and I think it adds to her character as well, that she was an extremely like shut off person, been through a lot, trying to repress so much. So with rewatches, I really enjoy Sam's character. I hope that they evolve it beyond this, obviously, in the next movie and give her some more to do. And write her character a little bit better. I feel like they gave her so much background that they didn't give her really a lot to do in the moments when she was actually in the film until toward the very end. But still really appreciate the character. And obviously, I love Richie. I love Jack Quaid's performance in this whole movie.
Yeah.
I think he's phenomenal. Yeah, but I would love to know your thoughts on Sam.
Yeah, I really like Musa Barrera, and I like Sam Carpenter as a character. I think that, yeah, she does not have like really any major scene stealing moments. But I don't really think that's really her fault. I mean, one, she's in a movie with Jenna Ortega, who is quite literally a generational actor. Like
Yeah,
she's going to define like this era for a lot of young movie watchers for years to come. So it's almost unfair that she's kind of being
for sure.
compared to such a beloved actor and talent there. And also, I don't know. I love that she's not at all like Sydney Prescott. I think it would have been really
Yeah,
easy for them to just make a new young 20-something Sydney for the modern era, but she's not. She's really nothing like her. She's a lot colder than Sydney. Like you said, she's very stoic. Um, I don't know. I appreciated the refresh. There may be like one or two specific scenes where I'm like, we could have gotten something better out of this moment, but like
yeah,
her,
we can probably
I've
talk about.
seen the criticism levied against her, but I feel like if in a parallel universe, Jenna Ortega's not in this movie, I don't think she gets as much of as bad of a rap as she got.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest problem, is that her big scenes that she does get in this movie, her scene partner is Jen Ortega. And
Yeah.
I will say, once again, I brought up the exposition dumping problem I have with this movie a little bit. And like I think that's the one thing that stops me from saying really that this is better than Scream 2
Mhm.
at the end of the day, because there's a scene that we're going to talk about later, man, where it just feels like it's going on and on and on, and no one would ever talk like this, not even in Scream, and not even in Scream 3. And then Jenna Ortega delivers like a masterclass performance in like the last 20 seconds of that scene. You're like, okay, that was good. And it is that weird ebb and flow. And I don't want to put all of that on Melissa Barrera because honestly, I don't think my major problems with a lot of her, sadly, it's her exposition scenes are not her fault, in my opinion, at all. So it is a shame. I just hope that they give her a little more to do in the next one. Give her some beats without Tara, maybe, and let her do stuff on her own.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm right there with you. But I will say I like the scene. We see them, you know, she's on her break outside the bowling alley. Richie comes out, as you said, played by Jack Quaid, who I love. I'm so happy he's in this movie. He's great in it. When she says that like she's taking his boner pills or whatever, he's like, "You are my boner pills." Just nice cheesy young people dialogue there.
Just corny enough. Just corny enough.
Yeah,
I feel like it toes that line very well.
Which again, Scream has done for a couple decades now. They're sticking with it here. Then of course she gets the call from Wes, who we haven't seen on screen yet, but he's already been referenced once. Yeah, Wes. It pretty much says that, hey, you know, your sister got attacked yesterday. Then she's like, "Do you know who did this?" And he says it was a guy in a fucking Ghostface mask. And I just love like how we're at a point in this universe and this franchise now where that holds so much weight, right?
Yeah.
Like
immediately.
Even in Scream 2 or 3, they still didn't know what to make of all of it. But like 25 years later, they're like, oh shit, like somebody just tried to kill somebody with a Ghostface mask on. Like we all know what this means for all of us, what it entails. Yeah, the gravity of the situation is real. And I think as an audience member, you feel that and you're just immediately like,
totally.
We're here, we're in this. Like, who is it? Who are we gonna lose? It's great. And then she says she's going to come to town because she's not in Woodsboro. She's in Modesto, which is several miles out of Woodsboro. And we'll get more details on that later. But I think our next scene is at Woodsboro High School where we get a
great needle drop here too. Very, very 90s needle drop.
It is like a mirror of the scene from the original. We get a cameo, Drew Barrymore's voice over the intercom. She is the principal announcing that the classes are canceled.
Awesome.
That was pretty cool.
So awesome. And this is where we get our new cast, man. All the new characters. You get Liv, Chad, Amber, Mindy, and Wes. He gets off the phone like immediately with Tara in this scene. Or Sam, excuse me. He gets off the phone with Sam in this scene. And he's telling them, you know, she's coming to town. Amber gets into a little bit of a... You can see that there's some tension there. Chad comes up with Liv. They're a couple. They seem lovely. They're talking about maybe losing their virginity to one another and having their locations sharing on, which Wes very vehemently says is a bad idea. And I love Wes, dude. I want to get that right out of the way first, dude. Dylan Minnette, I mean, listen, he's had a lot of ups and downs in his career in terms of the movies and TV shows and things he's done. But I've always found him to be a great performer. I've always found him to be really effortlessly likable in almost everything he's done. It's probably the reason why 13 Reasons Why even lasted as long as it did. It's probably because of him being one of those sole reasons. And his music's great too. He does a song on the soundtrack that is also phenomenal.
Yes.
Now I want to give a shout to later on. But yeah, man, I love this new cast. But I feel like Wes has not gotten enough love on the internet or anywhere really, because he has probably the least amount of time out of this central cast in this movie. But in his small time, he quickly became one of my favorite Scream characters, just because of how, one, he's related to Judy Hicks, who we love from Scream 4, Deputy Judy, who's now a sheriff in Woodsboro, who's been interrogating people, including Chad and the other kids. But Wes just has like this really earnest likability to him. He's just a good kid. Like we talked about on Chewing This, dude. He's just a good kid.
Yeah, no, I know he's almost. I know folks thought going in that he had a red herring thing going on about him just because he looks like emo and whatnot. But I love his character too, and I love the reveal here because I don't believe I knew this going into the movie when Chad says like, "Oh yeah, your mother was just interrogating me," and we pan over and we see Judy Hicks standing by the bus. Dude, I wanted to cheer when I saw Judy Hicks on screen coming back from Scream 4. It's something I love about this movie. Obviously, it's got so much love and reverence for the original Scream, but I love that it's also got so much love and reverence for the Scream sequels, right? Yeah. Scream 4 is getting its flowers in this movie, which I think is so awesome, because you could have easily never brought back Judy Hicks or acknowledged that character. Totally. And I don't think anybody would have ever.
Bro. She could have been a Kincaid.
Yeah. Even Kincaid gets a name drop. Like everyone. Yeah, it's again, I just love how this movie is like it's all in the family. We're not retconning 3 or
Mhm.
4 or whatever. Like we are
Yeah.
keeping it all consistent. It's cool seeing Deputy Hicks there. Now Sheriff Hicks, which is awesome that
Mhm.
she has gotten a promotion now. I love the moment with Amber points out that Chad has bruises on his arm. And she's like, hey, they said Tara fought back. You've got bruises. We know Scream. Writers love to weave that mystery in there
Yeah.
early. So you're immediately like, yeah, he does have bruises on his arm. That is sus.
And once again,
Um,
Amber just kind of playing games, dude, planting seeds early. And she does it with Wes, like very shortly after in a bar scene coming up as well, where she's planted seeds once again. I feel like this movie does a great job in honoring that element of Scream, even through this new style. And we also get introduced to, I believe his name is Vince,
yes.
correct? Played by Kyle
Yep.
Gallner, who's also having a great horror year as well. If you've seen
Yeah.
pretty much any big budget horror movie this year, Kyle Gallner has been a part of it in some ways. So, yeah, fantastic small role for him too. He's doing something very different out of his wheelhouse. He's like a tough, like asshole, like towny guy who used to see Liv
Yeah.
last summer, and Chad is obviously very smitten with Liv, so he whips out Hobbs and Shaw, as he says.
Yeah.
Kind of cringy line, but also still believable within this realm, so I don't hate it too much. It is odd.
It felt like something that person would say, like the Chad, the
Exactly.
like
That
jock
Chad would say.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like insecure about like his girlfriend's ex being around. I could see him saying something cheesy like that. It got a laugh out of me, I'll admit, when I watched the movie in
Mhm.
theaters.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very brief scene. We learn that Tara's awake in the hospital, and the group's all going off to see her, except for Liv, who's like, "Oh yeah, I've got a thing, I can't go," which little sus. I
Yeah.
think that was to kind of make her seem a little questionable, maybe. I
For
don't know.
sure. It feels like there's like
Um,
some element of the storyline missing with her and Vince, like in between that scene and Vince's demise, because Cal Gallner is in this movie. I mean, I'm not gonna barely lead with this either. He's in this movie for like 2.5 minutes, truly. So there's probably some
yeah,
deleted scene with like him and Liv like talking out there, and some explanation for where she actually went to and why she didn't go see um, Tara in the hospital. But yeah, they all go there. Then we cut to Sam and Richie driving to Woodsboro, and this is the scene, dude. This is one of two
oh
scenes in
boy.
this movie that I am not a fan of. And honestly, the first time I watched this scared the crap out of me, where I was like, "Oh no." Because up to this point, I was like completely like, "Oh, this is amazing. I'm vibing with this hard," and then it just went, "Ooh, goodness." Honestly, I want to know what you think about this scene first. We can kind of break it down, and I want to know your thoughts about
Yeah,
it.
so there's another lore scene coming up that I feel that way about. I don't
Yeah,
hate I don't really hate the car ride scene. As a matter of fact, I
yeah,
really like when I like when Sam explains to him like the past killings and Richie says, "Oh, like in Halloween," which is this funny reference because the original Scream is kind of like Halloween, and we know Kevin Williamson loved
Mhm.
Halloween,
And
and
she
that
is
the
a
franchise
carpenter
is
as well.
yeah, the franchise has always kind of been indebted to John Carpenter's Halloween. So it is funny when she's like, "Yeah, I guess it is like Halloween." I thought that was good.
Yeah,
But it is very much like, "Yep, this happened. This happened." Last time it happened was in 2011, which Scream 4.
Scream
Um,
4.
but I think this is to, I guess this is an exposition scene, but I think it's also again trying to get suspicion off of Richie because he's acting clueless.
Very much so.
He's like, oh, really? Like, what's happening here? He's like, no, I haven't seen Stab. I don't know anything about that shit.
Yeah.
Which we will learn is all bullshit later in the movie. Um, I could see why this is a step over the line for you, but I'll be honest, I don't hate the scene. It didn't bother me too much.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that the scene that you're probably talking about bothers me infinitely more than this scene, for sure. This scene is nothing compared to what is going to come up after this. But I don't despise this scene. I just feel like it is very like it is literally regurgitating now every ounce of information that doesn't even need context to Richie, which once again, I totally understand the context of this movie. He's trying to act like he's never seen them before. They're also trying to catch up people that haven't seen these movies and whatnot. It just the dialogue here, and might be the only time like their chemistry doesn't feel like all the way there, where it just feels like they're just like reading lines off to each other, especially toward the end where he's like, "Do you have any idea why someone would do this?"
Oh
And
yeah,
it just
why
feels
someone would hurt your sister?
so yeah. It feels so like convoluted to get to this point in this conversation. But at the same time, Richie is a weirdo, and I could totally see him this being a part of his game, like you said, he obviously had seen and been obsessed with these movies, and this little ploy of dangling the knowledge over her could be a part of this game, and that's all it was. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. I mind it less and less every time, but the next scene with exposition dumping, I mind more and more every time.
Yeah, so I mean, and maybe this is me just making excuses, but I think if you want to rewatch when Richie has that specific line, I think when you keep in mind that he himself, the character in this moment, is acting when he's like, "Oh, do you
Exactly.
know what?" He's like, "Do you know why someone would want to hurt your sister?" Now, did somebody on set tell Jack Quaid like, "Oh yeah, you really ham it up here"? Probably not, but I don't know. Like in the context of the movie, that character is bullshitting like
Exactly.
everything he's
Yeah.
saying, so he's kind of like, "Oh. Why? Yeah. Why would someone want to hurt your sister? That is so weird. That's strange. Wonder who that could be." But yeah, we get to the hospital proper.
Mhm.
Open the door. Everyone's in there. Pretty much everyone except for Liv, as we mentioned, she stayed back. I like the little like just a small beat where Amber and Richie meet, and it's like, hey, it's like, hey. And
Yeah.
at first watch, there's nothing really there. I don't think.
Nothing at
Maybe
all.
someone else picked up on that, but watching it again, you're like, you just want to like wink at the screen. You're like, yeah,
You're lovers, I
um,
know.
yeah, they're really doing the best they can here. We learned that Sam and Tara's mother's in London at a conference. That's why she's not present, although she is in the script. She there's one scene where she physically pops up in the
Mm.
script, so I guess that was something they changed. Then I believe here is where Amber asks Tara, do you have your inhaler, your extra inhaler?
Yes.
Which again, just like keep that inhaler like in your mind. It's more
Chekhov's
relevant than
inhaler.
it seems. Yeah, Chekhov's inhaler. It's coming back.
Yeah.
And then I do love when after we learned that Sam used to babysit the cast, all the like the teenagers when they were younger. I thought that was an interesting piece of like lore. But when they all leave and it's just Sam and Tara, because Tara wanted
Yeah.
Sam to stay behind. The second everyone's out of that room, how she just like breaks.
Ooh,
She just loses it.
absolutely.
She's like,
I was
Sam, I
so
was so
scared.
scared.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I was like, it's moments like that in Scream that just endear you to these characters, that make you root for them. It makes them more than just like pin cushions for when shit hits the
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Just a great moment overall.
Yeah, I feel like once again, Jenna Ortega absolutely selling it so well, selling the terror and the realness and the darkness of the situation, even through the fun moments of this movie. And Sam mentions that she's going to stay with her overnight as well and show in the hospital. And this is where now we get a great scene. A scene that I think there is actually a deleted scene on the Blu-ray or on YouTube somewhere that is longer that I actually prefer. I wish was in the movie, but the scene of the new cast kind of discussing Sam and Tara's relationship, Sam leaving at some point when she turned 18 and kind of turning her back on her family after their dad left. Amber obviously holds some resentment for that because she cares about, or she seemingly cares about Tara at this point. And Wes is like, oh, so you're going to stop her from any guys now? You're going to stop her from seeing her own family? The digs start coming out, dude. The digs start coming out. Mindy points out that Wes obviously has a huge crush on Tara. It could be a motive. All of them could be suspects. And I love the quick shots of all of them standing there. Just feels so 90s. It feels so 90s and so good.
It is very 90s, very Scream. I felt bad for Wes when they gave him the dig for having the crush on Tara. I'm like, leave my guy alone, man. Yeah, and this scene does have a deleted sequence where this was actually where we were supposed to first meet Dewey. Originally. Yep. Yeah, when Vince, who appears again, kind of confronts Chad. Dewey originally shows up and he's like drunk out of his ass and he's like, oh, Vince, get out of here, blah blah blah. And Vince just like punches the shit out of Dewey in his head, knocks him down to the ground. I'm gonna go in detail once we're done with this like bar rec center scene of the alternate sequence here was totally different after that in the script that I read.
Oh, okay.
Of what they originally had for that character. Then they changed it up. Or in the actual theatrical cut, he leaves out of the back of the building. We see he's out there like taking a piss on the bricks.
Yeah, this is one of the best scenes in this movie, in my opinion, right here.
So good.
Yeah.
Great visual with like his car parked and the headlights just beaming onto him. Car engine starts while he is still against the wall. And I love that when he goes back over to it, it's a Red Right Hand playing
Yep.
over the radio.
Ooh, right
Great
before the
way to
chorus really
put that in there.
comes into, he turns it off, and then immediately Ghostface right behind him just gives him a right quick through the neck. And I was like, man, first kill of the movie. Here we go. Just easy breezy, quick kill with Red Right Hand just like blaring at this point after the stab, where it just goes full on into it. Does the knife, cleaning everything,
Yeah.
standing there. I was like, this is Scream, baby. Like this. They get what this is supposed to be in that moment. I absolutely love it. But I would love to know the alternate way this scene is supposed to go, because I actually don't know about this.
Yeah, so in the script, which the first draft, which had the stuff with Dewey, with him getting into the fight with Vince, and then everybody getting kicked out of the bar, he still goes out, takes a piss on the side of the building, but he gets in his car and he drives off. And he's essentially, we cut to him driving down a road, and there's like fields on either end. It's not really in the suburbs yet. It's just kind of on an isolated road. And he realizes that his tire's flat. So he gets out. There's a knife like buried into the tire, and he's like blaming it on Dewey. He's like, like fucking Riley, like I'm gonna kill your ass, blah blah blah. So he gets down like on the ground to fix it. He notices like he's got brake fluid leaking. He's like, what the hell's going on? And then he goes like checks his trunk, nothing's there. And then he's like under it, I guess he got the car jacked up, and he's like trying to replace the tire, and he sees like boots on the ground on the other side of the vehicle. And he's like, I don't need help, like generic stuff. And then essentially you see like the cowl come down, and then Ghostface comes over and like stabs him in the leg while he's still like halfway under the car. And then he like shuffles under it. There's a sequence where he like gets out, and then Ghostface is gone, goes to the trunk again. Ghostface jumps out and like stabs him in the face. And then that's the scene. And then we would cut back to the hospital, which is where we end up.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I wonder how they would have incorporated Red Right Hand, if it still would have been that scene or would have been somewhere else in the film. I just love the way that this scene plays out. It's so simple. Like, I get people complained about the first kill being really simple, but I loved just how simple it was. Obviously, that is way more out there and crazy, and it probably would have been super suspenseful and amazing as well. But I do like the route that they took. I feel like they probably made the better, safer choice with that. I just wish that we got that Dewey scene in the bar, though.
Yeah, agreed. I really like this scene, how it came out. I think they probably went the right way with it.
Yeah. Well, then, like you said, we're back to the hospital. Sam wakes up from a nightmare exactly at the moment from the knife cleaning. Very 90s as well, which I'm okay with.
Good transition.
And also trying to like maybe insinuate, could she possibly be under the mask, or is she tripping, or whatever is going on? They tease that out a little bit because of the reveal that's coming up very shortly after. She wakes up and she sees Richie on his computer in the corner, like watching something. He says he's watching Stab, and I just want to say something right now, okay? Listen, even before we knew that Richie was involved in any way, shape, or form, the fact that this dude is in the hospital of your baby sister who just got freaking shanked many times by a dude in a Ghostface mask, and your boyfriend is sitting there chilling out, watching Stab. That's weird, dude. That's a huge red flag, man. Watch it on your own time, bro. That is crazy. Absolutely unhinged.
Or at least have the decency to lie and just be like, I'm looking at YouTube. What it was.
Yeah, something else.
Let's tell a white lie. Don't say I'm watching Stab.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I do love how he kind of sounds guilty, like when he says it, like the way Jack Quaid delivers that line. He's like, it's Stabs on Netflix. I'm catching up. I'm like, dumbass. Yeah, it's a good moment, and even sillier when you learn everything that's going on here. And we get Sam goes. She leaves the room and she goes not to the bathroom, but like a little like community room.
Yeah, like a kitchen area type deal.
Yeah. And she's in the mirror and she's taking some meds. And she looks up, and who else? I mean, people had a lot of like theories going into this movie. That wouldn't happen. I don't know if anybody expected that we would see the ghost of Billy Loomis, as played by Skeet Ulrich.
Slightly de-aged Skeet Ulrich, which is so...
Yeah.
This scene, it doesn't look so bad, but sometimes it's just like, oh, man.
It's a swing, and I teased it up top, but this was one of the things the directors said in the commentary, the directors and writers, that like they knew they wanted to bring a lot of like Wes Craven flair to this and whatnot, but one of the producers told them like, you should really do something in the movie that's just you. That's not Scream. It's not like
Yeah.
Wes Craven. It's not Kevin Williamson. Like it's just you. And that's where that's how they came up with the visions of Billy
Ghost
Loomis.
Dad. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is very unscream or anti-scream, except for I guess the weird Sydney's mom visions.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about actually.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah, and honestly, I don't mind it. I honestly, it's the feature, the part of the movie that I forget the most when I rewatch. I'm like, oh yeah, they did do that. But it doesn't bother me. I think it could have been a lot worse. I think it worked out. It worked out well enough for them. I just think it's cool that Skeet Ulrich got to come back. I think he shot all his stuff on like their last day of shooting. That was cool to see. He seemed really excited to be a part of it again. And yeah, he's pretty much talking to Sam, and he's like, pills aren't antipsychotics aren't working like they used to. When are you going to tell your sister why this is all happening? Which I liked. We're learning more about these characters and what's going on here. We know that there's a bit more beneath the surface now. But it's not long until we figure out what Billy Loomis's association is with these characters.
Yes.
But first, Sam's gonna get a phone call. It's Ghostface. After some taunting, she says, she's like, "You want to fuck with me, asshole? I'm right here. Come get me." And then Ghostface says, "With pleasure." And is right there in the room, which this is definitely 100% a nod to Scream 2. They do this in Scream 2.
We brought that up during our episode,
Yeah, in the frat house or the sorority house, where Sydney's like, "I'm right here, come get me," and he's like, "My pleasure," and jumps out. So thought that was a fun nod.
Yeah, quick little set piece here of them battling it out. And then this is once again why I think Melissa Barrera is at least, I mean, at minimum serviceable, but I think she's great in this scene. She really, once again, selling the scares. Like I felt like her physicality in this movie makes up for whatever you think about her acting ability aside from that and the emotional delivery of her lines. But I really think she sells a lot of the physicality in this movie. And she does a lot of the heavy lifting in regards to that too, in terms of the new cast.
Yeah, 100%. This is a very quick scene where obviously Ghostface is kind of attacking her in this isolated hospital room. She runs out to the lobby, gets one of the officers on duty. They go back. It's nowhere to be found.
Of course.
I think it's interesting that we get very quickly back-to-back sequences involving Ghostface, and it's like kind of in plain sight, right? Because at the bar scene, we know who was inside the bar. It's Amber, Liv, Mindy, Chad, and Wes. And then Ghostface is immediately outside, so odds are he was one of the people in that bar. And then she's in the hospital with Richie and Tara and no other named characters.
Yeah.
And then Ghostface is just there.
And it's not Tara.
Yeah, it's probably not Tara. So I thought that was interesting that very early on, they like geographically, like it's making sense where people are, like where the little chess pieces are at. Very interesting. I'm also not sure what Mr. Ghostface's plans were in that moment. That seemed like a very high risk, low reward.
Yeah, that's the thing that
attack.
you can't put. I feel like it's one of the scenes in this movie that I've never given too much thought to. I'm not going to now because it probably doesn't make sense what Richie was going to do in that moment, but it's fine.
It's perfectly okay because they've been doing that literally since the original. I think I talked about when Sydney and Tatum are like in the grocery store in the afternoon and you see Ghostface's reflection. I'm like, why would you risk going into like a grocery store? Yeah. She goes out there, gets some officers. Ghostface is missing, and now we get Sheriff Judy Hicks is in there now chatting with them. Again, love seeing Judy Hicks in this new role. We learned that her and Sam kind of have a bit of tension between them because Sam's kind of like, hey, like, can we get some goddamn help in here? Like, we're in a hospital, we're still not safe.
Is she gonna have enough protection? Yeah, she's going off.
Yeah. And then they go talk in the hallway, and Judy's like, straight up, you need to like get out of here. Like, you can leave town tomorrow.
She's like, your family's better off without you, dude. Go.
Yeah.
Now. And we see a different side of Judy. Like, she's laying it down, bro. She's laying down the law. She's the sheriff now, not a deputy no more.
Judy Hicks hasn't been that menacing since she was standing up in that hallway staring at Sydney in the dark. Like Slender Man.
Absolutely haunting. I was in your play, remember?
Yeah, it's like we sat right next to each other. And then after this, I guess that put something in Sam's brain. She has her like come to Jesus moment, or maybe it's just the words of her father still echoing in her head. And she goes in and she's like,
I can't stand
she's
this
like,
scene, man.
she's like, can we have a moment? Wants to talk to Tara privately. And this is where we get our big lore dump monologue where Sam is going to reveal that when she was probably younger than Tara is now, that she went digging through some files or whatever in the house and found out that her father is not Tara's father, but it's Billy Loomis.
Billy Loomis.
And she's going to relay this in excruciating detail to Tara. And that is essentially that's essentially kind of, because it really goes on, and that's one thing I want to say about the scene, because we've been alluding to it. Yes, this is like the big lore dump that isn't great. I don't think Melissa Barrera is great here, but I do not think that is her fault entirely. I do not think the scene is well written. I do not think that monologue is well written. It's got like this crescendo where it's like building up, and she's getting more like distraught and over the top. And I think that this scene, and again, I'm no screenwriter or director, but I think that
neither am I. I want to make that clear as well. I don't know anything.
I think this would have played a bit better if she kind of stays reserved. Because instead of going like, it was Billy Loomis, if she's instead just like, my dad was like fucking Billy, like it was fucking Billy Loomis. I think that would have been a bit more, honestly. It felt a bit more like real and authentic. But
probably, yeah, because I mean the way this all comes off. I mean, also I just want to give a quick nod. Amber and Richie once again have like a little moment where they accuse each other, and then they leave the room together as well. So it's like, okay, they're probably talking in the hallway, plotting the next move out here.
With the Netflix alibi, it's so good.
Yeah, and then that also clears Amber of suspicion too, because she was with Hicks apparently getting like interrogated or something like that. So very clearly Richie is the prime suspect here, and it's not going to take a long to deduce that. But yeah, so this exposition dump scene, we've been talking about it. I mean, there is just a point in this scene that makes me just like audibly groan every single time, where she's like, I left the basement, I'm going to my mom, I found out my dad really isn't my dad. And it's because my dad is Billy Loomis, and dad is standing behind me the whole time. That was the night he left. I had to go when I was 18, and it just is like, oh my goodness, there is an easier way of saying all this. There is a much easier way of relaying this information. And the whole time, Jenna Ortega is just like slowly crying and like stunned, and she has to hold that face, man. She has to hold those expressions, because this is just going forever, in eternity. But I mean, we get there at the point at the end. I will say I do like the detail of like the heart rate monitor going off in the background during the scene of Tara's heart rate monitor just like spiking and going down. It is a nice little touch, but yeah, just it's rough writing in this scene, in my opinion. Not Melissa's fault, really.
I think, again, not to like take the praise away from Melissa Barrera and heap it on the Jenna Ortega, but she does kind of save the scene at the end, because her like emotional response is great. Where she's like, you want to like dump all this shit on me, blah, blah, blah. And she just like flips out. She's like, get the fuck out of my hospital room. It's really good. It's a very good scene between these two sisters in the movie here. And it, I guess you need that information out there early, I guess.
Most definitely.
There's probably a more organic way to reveal it. And we learned that Tara wasn't the only person that heard that extensive monologue, because Richie was outside the hospital room listening the whole time. And again, more sus flags where Sam straight up tells him, she's like, hey, this is like the part in the movie where you tell the characters get out, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna leave, I want to stay here with you. He's like, you're what I care about. But it's like, really, he's like, I can't leave because I'm not done,
I have to keep killing everybody.
Yeah, job's not finished. I do want to say I'm glad you brought up the alibi for Amber and her being at the sheriff's station, because that is a deleted scene that I watched earlier. Where it's her and Mindy at the sheriff's station, and Dewey's there too. And essentially Dewey's in Judy Hicks's office, and she's saying to him like, hey, I have to question you. And Dewey's like, yeah, I get it. Like, Vince gets killed right after we got into it at the bar. I understand. And then she asks him like, so where'd you go after you went to the bar? And then Dewey's like, "Don't worry, like Judy, it wasn't me. I went home, my neighbor saw me." And she has like this relief wash over her because she obviously doesn't want to have to like
Yeah.
treat Dewey as a legitimate
Bust
suspect.
Dewey. Yeah.
Yeah, given the relationship. But then something really interesting, she kind of says to him, she's like, "Hey, she's like, nobody knows these killings better than you." She's like, "I could really use like an extra hand, like trying to figure
Mm,
this all out." And she's kind of like inviting him, I don't know, back to the force, but at least to help with this investigation. And
yeah.
then he's kind of like, "Nah, y'all got it." He's like, "Nope." He's like, "I'm not
Yeah.
doing this." Then he says to her, "Good luck," and then they have to leave because of the attack at the hospital. But
I would have liked to see that scene. I would have liked to see Dewey and Judy interact a bit, especially it would have added more to her death, I think. Um, Knowing that he had the
yeah,
opportunity to like step in and help her would add it to his own death eventually as well, maybe adding to that decision that he makes in his final moments.
it does. It does kind of make both their stories that much more tragic, right? Because had they gone into this as, to figure it out together, maybe neither of them die. Who
Yeah,
knows?
exactly.
Um, that's just one of a few deleted scenes in here. But after this, Sam and Richie decide that they need to see an expert. And this is where, in the theatrical cut, we actually finally get Dewey. We've talked about him a bunch, but
Yeah.
He
He
hasn't
hasn't actually
actually
showed
showed
up
up.
yet.
Yeah.
He's here
Um,
now.
yes, we go to Dewey's trailer. I love that he's got like the Tatum Memorial.
Yeah.
Cool attention to detail. Because I mentioned in another episode that even I forget that Tatum was Dewey's sister because it feels
Yeah, no,
like
literally, bro.
it's not much of a thing after the first movie. They talk about that
Yeah.
character like once between Scream 1 and 4 or 2 and 4. Um, he's got a picture of Dewey of himself and Gail, which I think is an actual picture of him and Courtney Cox when they
Oh
were
wow.
married
Okay.
IRL that they used. I believe they said that in the commentary. I don't remember. Um, we see that Dewey's watching Gail's morning show in New
Yeah.
York. Good
Yep.
morning,
A little
Gail
tease there, a little
Weathers.
setup.
Um, Very sad that he's like watching this and he's like smiling, happy
Yeah.
watching, but
David
Dewey's
Arquette's
life
giving a
sucks.
phenomenal performance in this movie too. Other than Scream 2, I would say this is my favorite Dewey performance and character showcase in all these movies. I
Mhm.
felt like he be some big laughs coming up and also some really big emotional beats. Like you feel for him immediately, especially because you've seen him since the very beginning, and you also most people are aware of their real life relationship and their divorce as well. So it adds this whole element to it and that they've been willing to come back and still work together. It's very nice to see that they are still family. And it does suck that Dewey is alone in his RV, a little bit of an alcoholic. It's he's a bit of a
A
curmudgeon. It
little
is a
bit.
bummer. Well, it is a bit of a bummer, but we love him. We love the Dewster, the Dewdrop.
Yeah, he very much is our like Luke Skywalker, Last Jedi OG in this
Mm,
movie, or at least early on. You talk about him having some big laughs when Sam knocks on his door and he's like, "Give me one reason why I should talk to you," and she's
yeah.
like, "I'm Billy Loomis's daughter," and then there's like a moment of silence. He's like, "That's a terrible reason for me to talk to you." I remember that getting a pretty good laugh in my theater when I
Mm,
saw this. And then I think I don't know if this is supposed to be a joke or not, but I think when Sam's trying to convince him to help, she says to him, she's like, "My sister was attacked. She got stabbed 7 times. I know you know what that feels like." I'm like, okay, asshole.
He's like, I got pinched nerves. I'm broken. I got a funny limp. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, he does know what that feels like. And I don't know if that was supposed to be a jokey line or her just being insensitive or whatnot, but it was really funny to
She's
me.
just the worst. Maybe the people are right.
It's like stab 7 times. I know you know what that's like. Like, you're not coming into my RV. But there's a little very tiny like blink and you'll miss it moment where Gail's on TV and you hear in the background she's like, "If I ever get bangs again, someone stage an intervention." She's like talking to I guess her audience on there, which I thought
Yeah.
was really funny. More meta commentary stuff. Um, and yeah, Dewey's kind of just going over the rules with them, putting suspicion on
Mm.
Richie, rightfully
Yes.
so.
Very much, especially because when he opens the door, if you look at Richie's face, he is like absolutely like stunned at the appearance of Dewey. And it's like, listen, he just watched these movies yesterday or whatever. It's like he doesn't care about who the real guy is, Dewey. So the fact that he was like so like enamored by him immediately also is like a little tease of what's to come. He mentions that Gail and him used to be married, and Dewey says not anymore. They sit down, like you said, they start going over the rules. He points suspicion at Richie right away and is like, could be your boyfriend. He mentions two more rules too. The killer's motive is always connected to something in the past, and the first victim has a friend group that the killer is a part of. And I don't know if that logic really checks, does it?
He said that, and I just wanted to like raise a yellow card in my
Yeah.
living room because I was like, well, except for in Scream 3, where I don't think anybody was friends with Roman, but I get what you're going for there, Dewey. I guess. I mean, I'm thinking like in Scream 4. I mean, I guess they were friends with
Yeah, they kind of imply that, and
Marnie and
then
other girls.
I'm thinking Scream 3, it's Cotton. Scream 2, it's Phil and Maureen, who they don't really. I mean, some character mentioned like he's in my class or something like that, but no real connection to the friend group. And Casey also didn't seem to be really like their close friend either, just someone that they went to school with that Stu had saw for a while romantically.
Mm-hmm.
So
more
interesting.
Like, more like the victim. More or less, so they just know the victim. Not too much as they're in the friend group. Funny line, but I do either way. I love Dewey kind of being the Grand Master here, giving them all the wisdom.
Totally.
This movie is very much like Force Awakens, new generation, old mixed with new, and we're gonna get a lot of that in the next sequence, which is one of my favorite in the entire movie. I love that Richie calls Dewey shitty Sam Elliott. Moments like that make me love David Arquette. Like I love that he saw that on the printed page and was like, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, he's willing to roll with the punches of this movie because they throw some big ones.
Yeah, he's not like ashamed like to just get made fun of or be the punching bag, which obviously Dewey has always been in this series. But even as the OG, for the young cast to kind of like shit on him, for him to just play ball, I love David Arquette so much, especially in this movie. And then after the two leave, Sam and Richie, Dewey picks up that phone and he makes a phone call. And probably I keep talking about when I saw this in theater because I had a great experience seeing this in the theaters back in January. Biggest pop for my theater was when it cuts and you see Sydney Prescott running. You don't even see her face, you know who it is. And she answers the phone, and it's Sid. She's taking the kids for a run. She drops the girls off at school.
Mark's good at home. She mentions when Dewey asks.
Yeah, we learned she's with Kincaid. I love
Is his life still
seeing
the scariest movie though?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Now that he has a family.
I mean, you combine both of them, both of them said that the scariest movie was their lives. That's an utter nightmare.
Poor children.
Those poor kids. Oh boy, Scream 7. Here we go. But it's great. It's just awesome seeing Neve Campbell again in this thing, man. We're about like half hour into the runtime. She is the queen of this franchise, this series. It's just dope seeing her just slide right back into that character like it's the 90s all over again. Awesome. It's just dope seeing her. I'm glad that they got her in this one. It's cool.
Yeah, me too, man. And I want to give Neve Campbell huge props for her performance in this one. This is also one of my favorite performances from her in this series because I think she sells like the maturity of Sid really well, especially in this scene. And I love just how genuine like this performance is. It feels so like authentic, and it feels like they're friends because they probably are, and they probably have been for many, many years. And it just feels like two people catching up, and it's nice. She mentions that when's the last time you've seen Gail, and she's sorry about all that and whatnot. And then, of course, great line. Dewey asks if she's got a gun. I mean, Sid. She's Sydney fucking Prescott. Of course she's got a gun. Yeah, it's like, dude,
she has a gun.
She's Sydney Prescott, bro. He tells her to stay back, and then they get off the phone. He debates calling Gail, and this is a little fun gag of Dewey being like huge boomer and just like sending a happy face, like, "Hey, what's up? Watch your show."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have sent that text." Yeah, and I'm like, "Damn, like poor Dewey, man. We've all been there." And then he even like types out, he's like, "I still," and then he like deletes it.
Oh,
and, like,
so messed up, dude. So brutal.
This guy's in emotional turmoil.
Yeah, poor Dewey.
But I love that we see he still has his badge and gun in the box.
He's ready for it still to help, man.
Yeah, he's ready for one last ride, and then we go to the Meeks Martin house, and then we get that beautiful, iconic Dewey's theme from Scream 2, baby.
I'm willing to risk all copyright issues just to play it. That scene right now, him getting out of the car, because it's just glorious.
Shit, he came. I've decided to temporarily assist you in your investigation.
Thank you.
Oh man,
It's awesome.
yeah.
A little bit of everything.
He's ready to what does he say? Temporarily aid in their investigation. And Rich is like, I don't think this guy should have a gun.
Yeah, it's like just because he showered doesn't mean he should have a gun.
Yeah.
It's great. And then we go inside of the house, and this is where we learn that Chad and Mindy Meeks, Martin, the twins, are the niece and nephew of Randy Meeks from the
Randy. Yeah.
original Scream and Scream 2. So Sam is not the only descendant or relative of a previous Scream character. Which is great. They have a whole shrine to him in their living room, his like horror movie thing.
Giant picture, like painted picture of Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah, massive Jamie Kennedy prom picture, which is really awesome. And yeah, they're straight up here to like figure out what's going on. This is really like the here are the rules of a Requel scene, which, and not to like sound dramatic or getting hyperbole, but this really does feel like the scene that the whole movie kind of hinges on, just like structure wise, just the whole Requel angle of it all, what they're trying to do. I think it all kind of hinges on this scene, and specifically the monologue from Mindy, expertly performed by Jasmine Savoy Brown. She's so good. I haven't mentioned her yet. I said earlier I was going to gush over the other cast. I love Jasmine Savoy Brown. She's one of my favorite working actresses right now. To talk about like Yellow Jackets, she's in like the Spider-Man video game. She's awesome. She's so good in this movie. I love Mindy, that character. I'm glad that we're going to get some more of her very soon. But yeah, they're pretty much trying to deduce what's going on here. Wes thinks that
this is it, dude. This is a good
Dewey's
one.
a suspect. It's so bad, man. He's like, he said, you know, Dewey got stabbed 1 billion times, dumped by his famous wife, and crawled into a bottle. Just a scathing cut.
Absolutely murder of Dewey's character and past.
Yeah. He just reads the shit out of him. And then Dewey's like, well, maybe you're the killer because that cut deep, which
got the biggest laugh out of my theater every single time I watched this movie, I think.
Yeah, it was a big one, and that was a David Arquette line that he improvised that or came up with that on set, I believe. Yeah. Which again, dude knows his character. He's got what it takes. He's really good. Then they revealed that Vince was Stu's nephew, so we're keeping with the theme of victims having connections to the past killers or characters. Other than that, is kind of random because I don't even think we knew that Stu had a sister, but I guess it fits.
Yeah, it's the classic Scream thing also of like, this is why it's happening, and then it's not at all. And they completely forget about it in the second half of the movie.
There's always got to be a reason why. And then we talk about the Stab movies, Stab 8, and man, you should have seen my eyes light up when Liv is like, oh, the one that the Knives Out guy directed. I'm like, hell yes. Knives Out direct name drop in a Scream movie is awesome. Especially
Ryan Johnson. Ryan Johnson's got to get the love right now, man. Okay, let's just briefly, real quick. Thank you, Ryan Johnson, for bringing back the Whodunit in like full force. Glass Onion was awesome. Knives Out was awesome. Looper was awesome. And you know what? Thanks for Last Jedi also. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I've got it up there in my background. But it's really cool. And then she says that she loved Stab 8. And then Mindy's like, of course you do. She's like, you have awful taste.
Yeah.
And to talk about Ryan Johnson one more time, I love that this movie, and I don't know if it's entirely intentional, but they really like take his side. They really defend him in the sequence where they talk about modern fan culture, where Mindy's talking about how people complain if it's not like the original, and they don't like it if there's a Mary Sue. And I love where Richie's like, he's like, what's a Mary Sue? And Wes is like, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. It's so good. But yeah, they're kind of defending his what he did with his Star Wars movie. They're kind of indirectly, although they do name drop Star Wars. Mindy goes on, she says, "Hey, you know, for a lot of people, the original is their favorite thing in the world. It's what got them into horror." And at this point, she's like talking directly to the audience, like
absolutely.
She could like walk out of the frame and talk to us in the theater at that point. And then she talks about how people like hate when you mess with their childhood. I love it. I love all the fourth wall stuff here because it's exactly
Oh,
how film culture is today. It's not just Star Wars. You look at Ghostbusters, everything, even Scream. Literally, there are people
it's
that didn't
true.
like this movie because it ruined the original for them, which is hilarious to me.
Which is just, I think that take is just like absolutely unhinged. Like
that is
I'm sorry, I don't like to say anyone's opinion is wrong, but that's just crazy. Like seriously, that this movie ruined the first movie for you. I mean, come on, get over
yeah,
yourself. Get over yourself.
yeah. It didn't. Those movies were not rewritten or changed. I hate when everyone says that, or anyone says that a movie ruined another one. So I'm like, that movie is the same. It wasn't changed or altered
Yeah.
in any way. You can go watch that movie a million times. But I love how she just goes on and on here. She's saying that you can't just reboot franchises from scratch anymore because fans won't like it. She references the new Child's Play remake, which I thought was actually pretty good. But I know that it wasn't really Mancini, so folks kind of weren't big fans of
Yeah.
it. Studio kind of went behind his back and did their own thing there. She mentions Black Christmas, Flatliners. And she says, you got to build something new, but not too new, part of the ongoing storyline, even if it shouldn't be ongoing in the first place, which is funny because it really is the model now. Terminator,
Oh, most
Halloween, Saw, Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park, and Star Wars. And of course, obviously, Scream in this case.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, once again, to people saying that the title was stupid and not intentional, that they were just like doing it to do it, just like reboot this whole franchise. I mean, seriously, once again, I hate saying people's opinions are wrong, but just rewatch this scene. If you don't like this scene, I get it, but I cannot. If you don't like this movie, I get it. I just can't see how people can't understand the intentionality behind so many of the decisions in this. Whether you like it or not, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, this is not some gimmick that the studio made them do, radio silence do, to like get this movie more money. Like, this whole thing is a critique on requels and even poking fun at it. I feel like it's a fair poke at all types of audience members. And I feel like that was also totally lost in the discourse for this movie, where it felt like people were feeling attacked one way or another, where it's like, I like movies like Hereditary, they're attacking me, or I like, or I don't like the requel trend, and this is doing exactly that. And it's like, you guys are all feeding into what this movie is.
No, literally, yeah.
Trying to say, guys. So thank you for proving its point, but also the discourse behind this specific Scream has just been so interesting to me. Had to get passionate about it for a sec because it's just wild and confounding.
No, I'm right there with you. I love everything they're doing here. I love the meta commentary. I love the not just commentary on the movies themselves, but the people that watch them. Because it just, obviously, people have always discussed movies, argued about them, but fan culture just was not what it was when the first Scream came out. Obviously, you had like Star Wars fans. That was like right before the prequels and stuff. But it just wasn't today, where like every franchise movie that comes out is like a hot button Twitter, social media, Reddit like issue that everyone has to have like a hot take on or debate about, no matter how like widely beloved or hated it is. And that's exactly what this movie is getting at here. They're like the crosshairs on these people.
Oh my goodness. It's like we're living in a nightmare. I just felt it. Like when you were saying all that, I was just like, this is like every day. People talking about movies every single day. It's so crazy.
It genuinely is. It is exhausting. But again, I love this scene. I love that she pretty much comes to the conclusion that the next victim is going to be somebody connected to the past movies, as the other characters have been. And then Wes says, "Wait, my mother was a character in one of those." Just like no one cares about the shitty inferior sequels. Wes,
it's like, Mindy, I mean, you could have prepped him a little bit more for what was about to happen and been like, it could, maybe, I don't know. It's like, you're Martha's kids, dude. You're not Randy's kids, all right? Chill.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, Martha Meeks was from one of the inferior sequels. How about that? I like Scream 4, damn it. But I thought that was a funny little nod. And then in a bit of a unexpected turn, they kind of point the finger at Sam. They're like, Mindy's like, hey, maybe this is all you, which I thought was funny. And then she kind of storms out. Before we leave the scene, though, I did have a couple notes here. In their living room, they had posters for The Blob, Vertigo, Psycho, just keeping with random horror movie posters and Scream.
Nice.
And I love that Amber, who's mysteriously quiet in this sequence.
True. Didn't even think about that.
She does. she does give a shout out to Jordan Peele. She's like, "What's wrong with elevated horror? Jordan Peele movies are fucking awesome."
True.
Which I'm like, great. We're getting all the modern visionaries.
Yeah, man. They knew Nope was gonna come out this year, and they had to protect it before the masses got to it. I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah. I feel like that line is just gonna age even better because when they wrote and shot this movie, all we had was Get Out and Us.
Mm-hmm.
But I like 10 years from now, the Jordan Peele is brilliant.
Oh yeah,
gonna age like a fine wine.
Cannot wait.
Man, he's gonna keep pumping out excellence. But yeah, Sam kind of storms off, leaves Richie behind, and in the car, who do we see in the rearview mirror?
Yeah,
Billy Loomis.
Billy Loomis. I like this scene actually. I just think this is the one time the CGI really stands out is this moment right here because I think it's in like broad daylight when they're driving too. It's in like the mirror reflection, so it kind of looks a little funky, but great performance. I think Melissa Barrera actually does a really good job in this scene, trying to fight back against that internal voice of her dead dad being like, "You want to kill everybody, protect your family, kill them all." It's like, oh man, I kind of want to see more of that in Scream 6. Honestly, a little bit more of where that storyline goes, especially with how this wraps up for Sam and her newfound violent tendencies. That's
a good point that I was going to bring up too. I was like, I wonder if we're going to see that feral serial killer's daughter Sam come out again.
Yeah.
In 6, maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, after Billy tells her, figure out who's doing this and start cutting some fucking throats. She has like a near miss, almost car accident, heart's racing, and then we cut to the interior of the Hicks house. And damn it, this takes a year off of my life every time I watch the sequence.
So this scene that we're about to talk about is probably in the entire series, quite honestly, the most emotionally devastating and also somewhat fun, darkly funny and very suspenseful. It is a mix of everything. And I feel like this scene encapsulates why I love this movie so much and why I do feel like it is right to be called Scream and fit in that pantheon of movies.
Yeah, the sequence here, we're at the Hicks house. It is devastating. It rips my heart out every time I watch it. And I just, before we get into what actually happens, I just go back to like things that Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven used to say when they would talk about this franchise. Were like, yeah, Scream is like fun. It has a lot of humor. It has characters that people love and care about. But at the end of the day, it is a horror movie. People die in horror movies. Like that is like those are the two sides of the scale in Scream movies. I think of the line in Scream 4 in the opening where it's like, it's a horror movie, people live, people die, and you better start running. Like, as fun as these movies are, they are going to have these scenes that just, take the life out of you. And
this is one of them.
This is one of them. Yeah. So we're here with Judy Hicks, who is home alone right now. She just finished placing an order for some sushi she's going to go pick up. She puts a note in the fridge, Wes lemon squares in the fridge. A great callback to Scream 4 when she made lemon squares. Do we
want to try them, man? Give me the recipe, Judy.
Yes, exactly. And then, of course, she hears a sound. Judy, being the smart sheriff that she is, immediately grabs that knife. She's like, She's like looking around. Chester boy, Wes is home after a little fake out jump scare. I love that we see that Wes has he carries like the taser and pepper spray on him.
He's ready, bro. He's the son of freaking Sheriff Hicks, bro. He's ready. Yeah. He's a great character.
Of course, he is equipped with everything he needs in the event of a Ghostface attack. Of course, at least theoretically speaking, he puts them in the little bowl by the front door. And then a very sweet moment between mother and son where she's like, "Hey, I'm going to pick up the food." He's like, "Why don't you get it delivered?" It's like, it gets mushed. I know you don't like when the food's mushed when we get it delivered. So she's gonna go do some order pickup. And then I love where she hands him the knife. She's like, "Can you put this away for me?" Yeah. She's like hands him the blade. It's pretty good moment.
Great chemistry between them too. I just want to say,
very good. Marley Shelton and Dylan Minnette here. Very good. What they do in this movie, and they're two very talented actors. But I love them as mother and son here. And then so she leaves. Pieces out. They didn't know that was the last fucking time they'd ever see each other.
Man, this is horrible.
Yeah,
I like actually don't like talking about this because it's so sad.
Is it so sad, man? I just love Judy Hicks so much. But yeah, she's driving. I think watching the scene, I wasn't sure what to think. Like for the first time, I was like, you don't kill Hicks here, right? And then when we cut to the shot of her in the car driving to the sushi place, I was like, oh shit! I was like, something's about to happen. We would not be following her to the sushi restaurant. And then she gets the call. She gets the call in her car. And again, classic Ghostface. I don't know whose decision it was for Ghostface to pronounce her name Judy.
Judy.
But I don't know why I love it so much. It's just such a
Sheriff
random
Judy.
detail.
Sheriff Hicks.
Hello, Sheriff Judy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come back. It doesn't tie into anything. We've never heard anyone say it like that, but I just love how he's like, I think that's just Ghostface having so much fun taunting and being a menace to this woman. He's like, yeah, what's up, Sheriff Judy? He's like, I want to turn myself in. I want to talk about the 2 people that I killed. And then she's like,
and everything plotting.
yeah. She's like, you didn't kill 2 people. You only killed 1. And he's like, by the time you see me, I'll have gutted your baby boy. And Judy, without a moment of hesitation, whips that car into a U-turn, flicks on the sirens, lights are on, racing home. She is bawling down this neighborhood street trying to get back home, calling for backup.
He's a good
She knows
kid.
her son's in danger.
He never hurt anyone.
Dude, when we cut to him in that damn shower and his phone's ringing, it's so sad. She's just calling him. He's not answering. The distress in that moment, man. Have you ever had a loved one where you're like, you think they might be in harm's way and you're calling them and they're not answering? It is not a good feeling.
No.
And then, of course, he calls again and he's taunting her. He's like, you're not going to make it. And at this point, Judy, I mentioned up top about how it's something so sad about when Tara's getting attacked that like this character is genuinely terrified and helpless. And you can just see a wash over Judy in this moment where she is just like, please. She's like, please don't hurt my son. He's like, please. He's a good boy. He's like, never hurt anybody. He's a good kid. Because she knows she's like not going to make it in time. And like all she can do right now is beg. And he's like, that's not good enough. And then he's like, have you ever seen the movie Psycho? And then we cut to the shower head, the visual nod to Psycho, which I love that shot of seeing the shower head. I believe they do it in Scream 2 as well. So I guess a double callback there. And yeah, he's just oblivious. He's in there showering up, can't hear or see shit. And then yeah, she makes it home.
Oh, this is like I mean, the scare itself is great, but this is just like horrifying and so messed up. And yeah, she's running to the house. Wes, I'm coming. And Ghostface just pops out behind like the little pillar, like next to her door,
and just hanging out,
bro, and throws her on the ground and just absolutely guts her, bro. Stabs her over and over. They show it too, the whole thing, and she just dies. That's it. That's the end of Judy.
I mean, he jumps on top of her and like goes to town, and she is covered in blood. It is all over her face, everywhere, and you can see the shock in her eyes. And just a fun little tidbit note from the script, and the way it was scripted when this happens, she actually pulls the mask off, and in the script it says there's a look of recognition in her eyes, and then she dies. Which I thought was interesting. They don't do that in the movie. Maybe they shot it and didn't include it.
That's another Scream callback that would have made sense, but it's okay not being in there. I feel.
Yeah, just thought it was an interesting tidbit, and then of course that happens, and as we're just sitting there like in shock, we just cut back to Wes getting out the shower. Something a lot of people can relate to. You see 8 missed calls from mom or whatever parent or guardian you have, like. That's usually like as big of a red flag as you can possibly have.
Not good. Yeah.
In life, that is never good news. So of course he's like, "The hell's going on?" And honestly, in that moment, he was more calm than I'd be. Because if I got out the shower and had totally, from my mom, I'm like running outside in my underwear to like figure out what the hell's going on. But yeah, he's like investigating, looking around the house, and dude, they torture you. They follow him for so long.
These tracking shots in this scene are phenomenal. He's going to the pantry. He's gonna get the chopsticks. He's gonna get the sauce plates. He's getting everything ready for the sushi, man. He's a good kid. He's a freaking good kid, bro. He's like just like a normal teenager. You feel so bad. Like I feel like this movie really lets you like because I mean, as much as we know that Scream 4's cast and Scream 1's cast were supposed to be teenagers, I think they all look a little bit older. The performances feel a little bit more mature, and they also don't go to these emotional lengths, I don't feel, in those movies, as much as I love them. And in this movie, I mean, he's like, dude, this is like a classic teenage kid. He's got his Axe body spray sitting down on his bathroom counter. It's like he just wants to eat lunch with his mom, and it's clear that they're it doesn't seem like there's like a dad in the picture. It's just them two, and it's like they just had a nice relationship, bro. I didn't want to see them go, and this next part is just so messed up too.
Yeah, I love the fake out scare with the fridge where like this whole time you're waiting, you're like, okay, where does Ghostface jump out from? Because you know he's at the house, he's there. So they like close the fridge, still no Ghostface, and the movie's just like, nope, not yet, and he's just going. And then I think maybe one of the single most heartbreaking shots of this movie is him standing in the living room, looking at the cracked door, and like as the audience, just the narrative irony of us knowing the horrific image on the other side of that door if he opened it up and saw his mom like butchered on the sidewalk, and he goes up to it and he's like, nah, he just closes it, locks it, and then boom, turns around, it's Ghostface.
And he puts up a good fight. Like, he tries, man. Wes is a good guy. He's trying to put up a fight, and then this is just one of like the worst deaths. I mean, one of the worst ways to die.
He's trying to like reach for his taser and his pepper spray. Like he left him right there in the bowl. They're like 2 feet away. He can't get to him, and then dude, he just gets overpowered. I mean, it's just strength versus strength, and that knife just lodges in his neck. And then
man,
it goes through the other side. It's a great practical effect. It's like a little prosthetic they put on his neck. It goes through and out the other side.
And you can see it like completely shaped within that little prosthetic too. It is gnarly, like a really grotesque, simple but really grotesque and uncomfortable kill, especially if you liked Wes, if you like Judy. Like, this is just not nice. Makes me feel even worse about what Mindy said too. I want to bring that back up again.
Yeah, thanks for that, asshole.
Yeah.
And there's even a deleted scene with her after this where she's at the aftermath and Sam says to her, like, I thought you said the killer didn't care about the sequels, and she's like, I guess I was wrong. But that's not in the theatrical cut. But yeah, and I know we talked about this very recently. This scene actually went a little different in the original draft of the script, where I think Hicks's death is relatively unchanged. She still gets killed on the sidewalk, broad daylight. But Wes, it's like they do the security thing again, where it's like window, door, blah blah blah, and it's all this shit's activating, and then eventually Ghostface like jumps out of a closet. They have before that he goes into a safe, like in his in one of his rooms.
Like, he gets away at some point earlier in this written version of the scene.
Yeah, he's able to get away from Ghostface, like wrestling. He like barricades himself in the den. He like rips up the mat and he like gets a safe, puts the code in, and then he pulls out a gun. And then Ghostface like jumps through the floor to ceiling length window, and then they're fighting over the gun, and Ghostface just slowly gets it under his chin and then just blams his ass. Just shoots him straight through the head.
Would have
which
been equally upsetting.
Yeah, no, literally. I'm curious why they decided to go with the one we got. Maybe because we already had a security alarm scare earlier in the movie.
And we have a gun death coming up later on too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
a couple. Yeah, so I get why they didn't want to do too much. This is Scream. I mean, we really don't deviate much from the stabbing and the knives. That much.
100%, and it's probably one of the most like iconic knife kill moments in Scream for me, just in the franchise.
Oh, me too, man. I think this whole scene is like in my top 5 or top 10 Scream franchise moments.
Yeah, this sequence is really something else. It feels very like mean-spirited, not like in a bad way, but it is like brutal, right? When we talk about the first couple Scream movies being lighthearted from a certain point of view, being very fun, 1, 2, and 3, but 4 and 5 having a very like nasty edge to them. And it seems like they're doing the same thing with 6. This is like the scene I point to of like, you want to see, there's like nothing to laugh at least not narratively. I guess if you're just like into dark humor, you'd laugh at that scene, but it is a very straightforward, horrific sequence. Rest in peace, Judy Hicks, man. One of my favorite Scream characters.
lemon bars, and she liked animated films and musicals, and that's why she didn't make it out of this. And it's a shame. And rest in peace to her and her son, bro. That just sucks.
It's rough, man.
That just sucks.
But it means they're both off the suspect list, I guess.
Very much so.
Because they were certainly on it before this. And then of course, outside, Sam's right at the aftermath. We see there's a shot of them putting the tarp over Judy's body. She's still dead. You see the sheriff's like draping the blanket over. I'm like, God, that sucks.
And she asked that one cop. I think he delivers like not a crazy line delivery, but it's just like I don't find it funny per se. There's just something about the way he says these lines. Like she's like, I knew his son. Is he okay? And he's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and it's just
sorry.
What? And he goes, I'm sorry. And he's just like, putting it away.
God, it's bad.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those moments where I guess it's like a cop or somebody reporting on the scene, you can't like disclose information to civilians, but at the same time you're like, it ain't good.
I'm sorry.
It ain't good. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's heartbreaking. And then we see Gail in the flesh. We saw her on TV earlier.
Finally,
she's here in Woodsboro. She did not listen to Dewey's texts. He said, "Don't come here."
No.
But that's very Gail behavior. Of course, she was going to come back to Woodsboro for this.
Of course.
She's always chasing that story. Gail has a line where she's talking to Sam and she's like, "Did you know the sheriff?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, she didn't really like me." And then Gail's like, "Yeah, me neither." And you know what, Gail? No, you didn't like the sheriff.
Yeah,
Judy did not have any beef with you until you started shitting on her lemon squares, calling her all sorts of names and whatnot.
Yeah, man, you're implying things about Judy and infidelity that wasn't very kind, Gail. So
yeah, and she still saved your damn life at the end of that.
True. At the end, yeah, it's true.
Not to mention,
come on, Gail.
So yeah, she said, I was like, that's not the whole story, Gail. Be honest.
Just some respect.
But we get another great character moment. Where Dewey and Gail reunite.
Their only shared scene in this movie.
Yeah. And it's the closest we get to a reunion because we never get Gail, Dewey, and Sydney together.
Oh my goodness,
at once. But it's all right, it's how the chips fall sometimes. It's a great scene, man. David Arquette and Courtney Cox, you talked about them earlier, how they still bring everything to this
totally
franchise, their relationship, and their respective roles, despite like real life stuff between them. They're so good here with them just kind of chronicling their relationship. We learn that when Gail went to New York, that Dewey originally went with her, and then he said he couldn't hack it. He left after like 2 months.
Such a brutal line delivery too when he said that.
Yeah,
like, he felt like a coward.
Yeah, he said he left in the middle of the night. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Went back home to Woodsboro. Gail's not happy with him. The fact that Gail didn't even know that Dewey was off the force until she asked. She's like, "Where's your uniform?" And you're bad. He's like, "Oh, I retired." And she's like, "Since when?" He's like, "Since they asked me to." And I'm like, "Damn, that's rough."
I love.
Life could not be any worse.
Yeah, man, it sucks. And that's why I feel like Gail's words here in this moment, just like one of the best emotional beats in this whole series. I think Dewey is a character that has been through the ringer in every possible way, shape, or form. His forgotten sister, then Joe from Family Guy bringing up his sister and Scream 3. It's the only time she's ever mentioned. And the whole Gail love up and downs. And Dewey just, and he always put everyone else first. And she tells him, she's like, "Dewey, if there's one thing you are not a coward." And like that line, bro, so good. I love Dewey and I love Gail. And I feel like Gail's come so far. I mean, we've talked about it through these episodes that she's probably one of the more interesting characters to follow over this series. And I can't wait to see like where they take like the effects of Dewey's death as well in Scream 6. Like this is the first time we'll be a Dewey-less Scream movie. It'll be very interesting to see. And a Sydney-less Scream movie, which is crazy to even think about.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. And it's funny hearing them talk about New York and all that, like her going there and everything, because now knowing that that's where we'll be at for the new movie. Just interesting. I was like trying to glean any extra details listening to that conversation. But it's great. It's cool to see these characters still so authentically themselves 25, 26 years later.
Yeah.
Still excellently written, beautifully performed. Just great stuff here. And I love where Gail says to Dewey, "You were meant to be in Woodsboro," and he's like, "And you weren't." And that's just that's it.
And
Not
that's
meant
that,
to
man.
be.
And that's that, because then Sam's like, "Who's watching my sister at the hospital?" And that dude that saved her earlier is like, "We all came. We heard about the sheriff," and she's rushing over there. Dewey's like, "I'll go with you." I actually really enjoyed their chemistry too between Melissa Burr and David Arquette. He's like,
Yeah.
she's driving speed in there, like trying to call Richie and Tara, and he's like, "We have to survive to save her."
Oh yeah,
So
it's like we
good.
gotta like make it to the hospital because she's driving like a bat out of hell. It's great. I did like their dynamic. We don't get a lot of it, but they are good together.
Mhm.
And then, as you mentioned, Sam calls Richie, and we go to Richie, and what's he doing? He's eating Pizza Hut, and he's watching YouTube. And who is he watching? Dead Meat.
Dead Meat.
It is James A. Janice, and Chelsea Rebecca cameoing in this movie as technically not themselves. They're YouTubers. Their channel's called Film Fails.
That's what it is. Film Fails.
Yeah. Although on their set they have the frame and it says Dead Meat. It's got their logo in it, which I thought was really cool. So it's funny, when I first saw this movie, I had no idea who those people were. Like when that cameo came up, I was like, yeah, I assumed, I was like, okay, those are like YouTubers or something. And I got what they were going for, but I did not know who they were. And I think I just stumbled upon like the kill count videos that they do like 4 or 5 months ago. Yeah. And then I was watching, and then I got into like the podcast. I was like, damn, I love this channel. And then in one episode, they said something about Scream, and it all clicked. And I was like, oh shit! I was like, they're the cameo in Scream. And they talked about it in one of their episodes. So essentially, I believe they covered Ready or Not on their show a couple years ago, and had copyright issues, something we're familiar with here on your channel. And it was Radio Silence, Tyler Gillette and Matt Bettinelli Open, who were fans of their channel, saw they were having those issues, kind of reached out to the studio and got that resolved for them. And then they ended up coming on to be on their podcast. They became friends. Then I guess along the way, they invited them to have this cameo role in Scream 5. And it's a cool moment. I think Chelsea was talking in an episode about how like she had to like remove a lot of stuff from their set. They could only have like certain references to certain movies on there. They had to like take pictures of it and send it to Paramount and Spyglass and stuff like that. And that she said they kept doing like different takes of it before they sent it to them. And it's great because they're playing like the douchebag YouTubers, like, oh, they ruined our franchise.
The Geeks and Gamers equivalent of Dead Meat out there somewhere in the alternate universe.
Yeah, they're very stereotypical like film YouTubers, and they're I love that Chelsea's like shitting on the fact that they call it Stab and not Stab 8. They're like, you're not fooling anybody. We know it's Stab 8. Because obviously Scream is called Scream, but it's Scream 5 really. Fun little thing there. And then also in that same frame, because we get a shot of this laptop screen.
Another cameo in this scene.
An awesome one that I can't believe I didn't see this when I watched the movie the first time. I read about it when I went home. I was like, how the hell did I miss this? But Kirby lives. We get there's pretty much like they're watching YouTube, and there's like a suggested panel of videos, and here are all the videos in their channels. So we've got interview with Woodsboro survivor Kirby Reed by Bloody Disgusting, which I thought was awesome.
Which is great. Yeah.
I just think it's so cool that they confirmed that Kirby lived in this one, because even going back to Wes, you know, the mastermind behind all of it, he said vocally that he thought Kirby was still alive after Scream 4. So I thought it was really cool that they kind of honored that and made it canon prior to obviously her appearing in the next movie.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see Kirby return. And also, I don't know if you knew this because we haven't talked about it yet. There is one more cameo in this scene, and it's a former killer. Matthew Lillard is the Stab 8 flamethrower wielding murderer in this scene, which is awesome. You could tell by his manic body movement that it's probably Matthew Lillard under there. It's, you know, I love that they were able, and later on there's another great homage with former cast members. I think is just such a sweet touch on this movie, incorporating everything. And also, like you said, Dead Meat, I think it's phenomenal that they got to be a part of this. I think they've done so much for the horror community in the past couple of years and showing people, especially younger people, a lot of older films. I think they've done a good job of curating their selection for their podcasts and for the kill counts. And honestly, I mean, their podcast is part of what spurned on like a lot of the discussion to start this show. So major props and kudos to James and Chelsea and everything they're doing over there. They're fantastic. If you're not watching them, you should be.
I love the Dead Meat team. Probably watch them more than any YouTube channel right now. But there's also some other like smaller references on here. So under the interview with Woodsboro survivor Kirby Reed, we've got Ryan Johnson on reinventing stab, and that video does say it's Dead Meat is the YouTube channel on that video.
Okay.
There's every stab 2021 kill ranked from worst to worst by Hollywood Crabwalk. There's Not My Stab, join the Stab Head Army, and hashtag redo Stab 2021 by Stabhead. And then the last one, and a really funny one, given if you know a little bit of Scream production lore, episode 118, Did the Real Life Stu Mocker Survive? By True Crimes Conspiracy. Which is great. And then, dude, when he's like looking at that screen, you can see on the Google like YouTube format, it shows like Stab, and it's like you can rent the movie. It says that movie's 2 hours and 32 minutes long.
Oh my goodness!
I'm like, good lord.
Well, Robert Rodriguez directed it apparently, so
I mean, yeah, you're right. That is a long slasher movie.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, Jesus Christ! I just thought that was a funny detail.
I want to know what the added scenes are in Stab that got it to that length.
It's like an hour longer than Scream. But yeah, obviously you mentioned the Ghostface chrome mask and stuff. We get another meta moment when Richie's talking to Sam on the phone, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the whole franchise goes off the rail with 5." With this obviously being the 5th movie. And then Richie's gonna make his way to the hospital, which is where we go next, and we see Tara watching some Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, well, Kevin Williamson tip of the cap there. I think it's like a Halloween episode too, is it not? Like it's like a themed episode of Dawson's Creek or something like that.
I believe so. And the show itself, Dawson's Creek, also had it was created by Kevin Williamson. It also had Joshua Jackson in it, who was a student in Scream 2. He was in the class.
Yes, of course.
So a lot of threads there. So it's a fun little nod. One that's easy to completely miss, but
totally,
it's cool to toss that in there. But great scene here. I love the tension here with Tara hearing the struggle in the hallway, and then her like painstakingly lifting herself into the wheelchair
everywhere.
Yeah, it's rough though, but I love the sequence.
Oh yeah, it's great, man. She finds like the dead security guard, gun's gone, I believe.
Yeah,
and she's worried, very clearly so. She runs back to her room. She gets her little pan thing, which is also like a thing that Dewey got thwacked by in the last Scream movie by Jill, I believe, at the end of that one. Another hospital sequence. She hears someone coming. It's Richie. She smacks him over the head with the thing. She's all messed up. He's messed up now. He's like, "Why the hell did you hit me? Your sister told me that you were going to be here." And out of nowhere, Ghostface appears. And this, honestly, when the first time I watched it, very much threw me off the Jack Quaid suspicion trail, even though it was the classic Scream arm cut.
Yeah, classic arm cut. Anyone who gets their arm cut by Ghostface and that's it, put them at the top of your suspect list. I'm the same though. Yeah, we mentioned it in another episode, I think, but it's kind of a trope at this point of Ghostface attacking Ghostface to remove suspicion, right? You just sustain a very light flesh wound, arm slash or something, and then until the third act, nobody thinks it's you because obviously Ghostface would never attack their accomplice.
Unless you're Derek.
Yeah, unless you're Derek. But yeah, I think this threw me off of him too. And I think I'll get to it when we get to that third act reveal, but I didn't have like the twist figured out. I going into the third act, I wasn't like, it's obviously Richie and Amber.
Same.
I know some people said they did, but that's not, maybe I'm just naive, but I was not 100% sure up until those final reveals at the end. There.
Yeah.
We got a really cool moment here because Tara's like wheeled herself out to the hallway. Poor Tara's going like 1 foot every 30
and
seconds
her hand
on
is
that
like
wheelchair.
Bleeding. You see, it's a great visual. You see the bandage just slowly like soaking up the blood from her cut hand. It's like, oh my goodness, she's going through it.
The sound design.
Yeah.
You can hear it. It's bad. And then I love the shot of Ghostface when he first walks into the hall and he stares down. I'm pretty sure that was like one of the first stills we got before the trailer.
I think it also became like an alternate poster, I believe, for the movie itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very, very iconic shot, I think, from this movie. And then really cool moment here, something we never see in Scream, where he grabs the phone to call Sam, and then physically on like under the mask, we see Ghostface press the voice mod button, and it like turns on. It like makes this weird beeping sound. It powers up, and then he's talking to Roger L. Jackson as he's following Tara slowly and essentially is giving Sam an ultimatum. Can save Tara or Richie, pick one.
Yeah.
And then Sam's being indecisive. She's like, please, no, I can't pick. And Ghostface is like, you're just a little bitch who can't decide whether to save her sister or girl or boyfriend.
Like your sister's my pincushion at this point.
Yeah. And it's great. I think knowing that in this scene it is Amber specifically under the mask this time, it's even better because you know that she hates Sam. So her like mocking of her it makes total sense there. And
Good point.
After she like dumps Tara out of her wheelchair, and I'm like, dude, how many injuries can this woman sustain? Because she's
shocking that she even survived this movie, considering everything that she went through. To be honest with you,
she got like 2 movies worth of Dewey injuries in this one film.
Maybe even 3, bro. Honestly,
she gets it really bad. And then finally, Sam's like, hey, you know, maybe I can't decide, or maybe I've just been stalling. And then ding, you know, elevator door opens, her and Dewey come out. I like this moment a lot. Dewey immediately, no question, just starts firing. Ghostface like runs off into a room, and then they have like 2 seconds of respite where they're like trying to walk back to the elevator, and Ghostface crashes it back out. He's fighting Dewey.
Great little
watching it the first time. Yeah, watching it the first time, I'm like, oh no, this is like where Dewey dies.
Yeah.
And then he kind of Dewey's like, he's like, not today. And then he throws Ghostface off, shoots him like 3 times in the chest. It's a very like fist pump, hell yeah moment.
And Richie's face too when they're walking back to the elevator after this is like, oh no.
Yeah, a lot of good face acting, man. Jack Quaid, dude, he's great in this damn movie.
I love him.
They get to the elevator, and goddamn Dewey, he's like the head. You got to shoot him in the head. And then Sam's like, who gives a shit?
Honestly, man.
Yeah, which I'm with you, Sam, on this one. And then Dewey's like, I do. Then he goes back, and he has that final walk. You talk about like a death flag being waved.
Yeah.
Him walking slowly down Dewey. That hall. That is a farewell walk. Yeah, and then I think the most tragic part about it is that like he takes the gun, he's about to shoot Ghostface in the head, and it's the phone call from Gail. It gives him pause for 1 second. He's like, and then Ghostface lunges, stabs him in the front and back, which that can't feel good.
Yeah.
And then one of the most savage lines Ghostface has ever delivered in a Scream movie. Yes, today.
Yeah.
That cuts. That cuts so deep.
Oh
and dude, the blood like spilling out onto the ground, not like dribbling.
He's like, done. I mean, immediately you know that Dewey's done. Like he's been through so much shit that you know that this is bad if it's looking like this.
It's like a bucket of blood hits the ground when like they yank that knife up, and then pretty much finishes him off. Says it's an honor. There's a brief moment where he looks down at the phone on the ground, sees that it was Gail calling. He smiles.
Then he gets kicked.
He gets kicked. And then sadly, it's a really cool shot where Ghostface is like standing up, like holding the 2 blades over his dead body, and it's like, damn, R.I.P. to Dewey.
Yeah,
that is it. It's a bold move. I mean, probably like the single biggest thing that happens in this movie, right? I mean, Dewey dying.
Oh, for sure. I mean, in terms of the franchise as a whole, this is the most impactful, crazy moment, other than like the passing of the guard, I suppose. This is for sure up there. Yeah, man. Rest in peace, Dewey. We've been on this journey with this character through this show and watching all these movies like super back to back. I've only grown to love David Arquette's performance more, and Dewey even more, especially in like editing and re-watching his clips endlessly. It's like, man, what a committed performance, especially in this movie. Still, I don't know how I feel about him being like, I have to go now, like right now, and do this. It is part of his character, and at the same time, it just isn't. It's something about the execution of it has never like sat completely right with me. But I mean, the death is great, and I mean, I think it was a good send off for David Arquette overall. They had to give him like an extremely brutal death if he had to go because of how much he had been through up to that point. It couldn't just be like a simple stab or a shot to the face or something.
Yeah, he doesn't say it outright, but I also think like just kind of reading into character motivations. I think that like they've kind of beaten us over the head with it at this point that Dewey's life is like awful. He is
And he's
at
been
rock
running.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been running. He's lost everything. In a way, he kind of has nothing to live for. At least that may be how he feels about himself.
True.
So I could see him
Yeah.
being like, I'm ending this shit. Like, I don't think in that moment, I don't think he's like, oh no, I might die if I go back. I don't think
Fair.
that's
Yeah,
like,
true.
I don't think that's like a care in the world to him. Yeah, it's a devastating scene, man. And it's something that I know they'd say in the director's commentary that the studio wasn't sure about it first. They said that they made them shoot an alternate version where he lives, like an alternate scene where he lives, and it's like confirmed, like you don't see him again, but Sydney and Gail like confirm he lived. And the directors even say they're like we shot it, but they're like we had no intention of ever fucking using it, but like we shot it because the studio told us to. But I thought that was an interesting tidbit that they were like. Studio Paramount was like, "Are you sure? All right."
Yeah.
But
respect for them wanting to keep David Arquette around, but I just think, I mean, out of the three, for sure he was the one that seemed the most expendable at this point. I for lack of a better word, and also I can't imagine him being a part of the finale in the way that Gail and Sid were. So I feel like it worked out for the best.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. And look, like Gail says to him earlier in the movie, you were meant to be in Woodsboro. It always felt like Dewey was always going to live and die in Woodsboro.
In Woodsboro, that's true. Yeah,
it's fitting, I think. And I'm sure that character's influence will live on. I'm sure you will get several references to Dewey in Scream 6 and beyond. So
yeah.
Peace
Shout
out.
out to Dewey, man. Goodbye, Dewey.
Riley.
Gail finds out about this. She gets a slow-mo shot of her running up to the hospital crying. She sees the body bag getting stretchered out, and then Sam and Richie stop her. Obviously, Richie's probably having a field day with this right now, holding Gail in his arms as he watches homegirl like just absolutely murder Dewey. And yeah, we get a conversation between Sam and Gail, which is quite nice. I enjoy this moment. She says that's what he did. He helped people. I mean, just further cementing Dewey's fantastic legacy of being a great dude. She goes to check on her sister, and this is where we get Sid finally like appearing in this movie fully. And she meets up with Gail, and she's like, "I came as soon as I heard something's going on. I'm gonna fight it. We're gonna get these young kids on board."
Yeah.
This begins like the final finale of this.
It does. It's not really spoken directly, but I just love the character, I guess, motivation. Like in the beginning when Dewey tells Sydney, he's like, whatever you do, like, just don't come back here. And Sydney's like, I promise. She's like, I have no intention of ever coming back to that town ever again. But when Dewey dies, she's like, I came as soon as I heard, like it just kind of shows you like how strongly she felt about Dewey and how much she wanted to be there for Gail because she knew that would hit her harder than anybody. Most likely, man. And it is cool seeing them reunited. I love the Gail Sydney duo. It's timeless. And it's cool seeing Sid interact with Sam. Although before that, we do get a great moment between the sisters, Sam and Tara, in the hospital room.
Before they leave.
Where Tara says she's like high as hell off those painkillers.
Yeah, they get to make up finally, and she's like, "Let's just get the hell out of here. No one ever does this. Let's go. We're out of here." And that's now where we're talking about where Sam encounters Sid and Gail. And honestly, dude, I'm not on the Sam hate bandwagon train at all. But this scene, honestly, she is very frustrating because, dude, listen, Sid and Gail have literally been through this more than any human should possibly have done this. Okay, Dewey died going through this a billion times. So honestly, I would just sit and listen to what these people have to say. But she's like, "I'm not living your life, lady." And I love that Gail quickly like puts her in her place. Like, you're looking at the original, bro. Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, put some respect on her, bro."
Yeah, it's it is like I feel torn in two directions watching that scene because obviously like I am a Sidney Prescott stan. Like I am all on Sidney's side, but then I also do love that Sam is not that character. Sam is not like, oh, please tell me. I know that you are the OG queen here. Like I think it's cool that she's like, I didn't live your life. She's like, I'm not doing this shit. I do like both sides of it. And when they're outside and after some discussion, Sam eventually gets in Richie's car. He's like, can we please get in the car so we never have to see these people again?
Yeah.
And then when they leave, And
Oh, I love
Sydney's
this.
like, she's like, she says, I put a tracker in her car. It seemed like something Gail Weathers would do. It's a great,
Like,
great
I
little
think I'll take
moment
that as a
between those
compliment.
characters.
Yeah, I love, they've known each other for so long now. It's okay to steal some techniques. I also love like Sid's, Nev Campbell's line delivery here, where she's talking about like he's gonna keep following you. He's gonna chase you to the ends of this earth until he gets whatever he wants, whatever it may be. And I have kids, so I won't sleep until he's in the ground. And I'm like,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
Sid with an
Well,
epic line delivery as always. And it's not like over the top, it's like just enough. Yeah, great scene. And even in talking about like me being upset with Sam, like talking crap, I think it serves, like you said, like both their characters very well. And I appreciate the fact that Sid is not the one to kind of be put her in her place, and that it's Gail instead. And that way Sid gets the line a little bit later on where she's like, oh, I like her and stuff like that. It doesn't feel contrived as many movies of this ilk Requel territory do. Are like, oh, the new guy's so cool, I love them. It doesn't feel super ham-fisted in that way. But yeah, now we're getting to the best part of this movie, baby. The party scene.
hell yes. Great. I love the little tracking shot intro that we get with Amber coming down the stairs. I have not talked about her enough this movie, but I
Yeah, we
love
haven't.
Mikey Madison in this movie. I love her in this movie. She's so good. I guess this will be the part to do it, but I love her as Amber. I love her as a killer. I just think she's amazing in this movie. I think she brings a lot to this final act here. Obviously,
Yeah.
parties jumping, walking through the house. We go to Chad, who is doing a toast
This is a great
for
scene right here.
Wes, which, as you mentioned earlier, is a huge cameo, a bunch of hidden voice cameos of people that appeared in previous Scream movies and worked with Wes Craven. They've got a whole list of people here: Henry Winkler, Adam Brody, Hayden Panettiere, Patrick Lussier, Marco Beltrami, Wes Craven's widow, Aya LaBunca, as well as the directors, producers, modern cast. So that huge for Wes toast is a literal toast to the man himself, Wes Craven, which I think is so cool.
This whole sequence just feels like an honoring of that first movie in so many ways. I think this is where it feels the most Scream for sure, is this last like 30-40 minutes of it. Yeah, just like a killer third act. One of my favorite third acts in this whole series, honestly. And yeah, the toast is great. Chad's like, this is how I mourn. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but while we're on the subject of Chad, I'll just get out of the way as well. Him and Liv later on are like making out on the couch. She's like, are you ready to have sex? And he's like, I'm scared because I don't want to be in a place without any witnesses, and you could be the killer even though I don't think you are. That creates like the separation, the first separation of characters within this finale sequence. And yeah, and it kind of just slowly spirals out of there. Sam, Tara, and Richie are on their way out of town, and Chekhov's inhaler, here it comes. Tara's like, I don't have it. I think it's at Amber's house. And Richie is just totally against this idea. What does he say? What is the line he says? The address?
Oh yeah, he's like, no fucking way Lane or something like that.
Yeah. And yeah, he just goes off and he's kind of being a dick. And honestly, once again, a little bit to throw off the suspicion, just a tad, in my opinion, which I think they did a good job of. I didn't feel like it was obvious, like you said. I think I suspected both those characters at several points in the movie, but until it really happened, I wasn't entirely confident in either of those things. But yeah, he eventually concedes. They go over there. Party's continuing. And I love this next scene with Amber and Mindy down in the basement.
Oh,
when Amber
so good.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sequences there. Where Amber goes downstairs to get some beer. And then she's in the fridge, she closes it, and Mindy's standing there, and then it's like, that was a test, you failed, you never go downstairs like by yourself when there's a killer around. And then again, Mikey Madison, just the way she like just flips that switch where you can just see it in her eyes, and she's like, it's like, how do you know I'm not the killer? And then I love Mindy just being playful and completely oblivious. He's like, because I am. Just like, not really. Again, I love Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mikey Madison's whole new cast, so good. Their scene here together is great. And she's like, you can't trust anybody. It's like, well, how do I know to trust you when you say you're not the killer? And she's like, good girl. And then even when they're like, let's go back upstairs, and then Amber's like, you first. And then Mindy's like, smart. Just that scene of them playing with the rules. Obviously, we see a character going into a basement in a Scream movie. We had that infamous party scene,
Of course.
the first time around. I think it's just as effective here, although no one dies in the basement there. And it's good. I also I have to give some props to Richie, man, because he is really putting on his best performance when he's like, no, let's not go back to the house, because he really is fighting against it. And I'm like,
totally.
What if Tara had just been like, you know what? Yeah, it's fine. I can make it to Modesto. Let's just leave.
And he's like, actually, I want to help you now.
yeah. Would he be like, you know what? No, let's get your goddamn inhaler. I
I'm
thought
sorry
that was
for
funny.
being a dick. Let's go.
Right. We see Gale and Sydney are on their way there, or they're still following like the tracking device. And Sydney's talking about how, Gail's saying that she regrets writing that book about Sydney's mother all those years ago.
Great character moment.
Yeah, she's saying that she kind of started all this, which you kind of did. And Sydney's, of course, like, no, you didn't start this. Billy Loomis and Stu Macher started this. And then me on my couch, I'm like, no, Roman Bridger started this, right?
Yeah. It's true.
Hey, in canon,
it's true.
I love when we go back to the house that Chad's now looking for Liv as she's like stormed off.
Ooh, another fantastic sequence.
I love how much of an asshole Mindy is here, which is like, hey, she's probably dead. Because we know Mindy doesn't like Liv anyway. And it's like, that's my girlfriend, Mindy. Come on. And he takes like the candlestick, I think.
Yeah.
And he goes looking for her. And I just love the use of technology here with the like Find My Friends app. And he's looking at the little blip and it's moving around.
Yeah.
And he's trying to find her. And then Ghostface, boom, jumps out, gives him a good stab in the thigh. And then great suspension when Chad like limps behind the shack and he's holding the phone.
This scene is crazy. This last bit of this scene is the best. He's holding the phone. You see the tracker just slowly coming up on him. And he has to make like a decision, like right now, do I move or what do I do? His legs all messed up. And this shot, when he finally decides to bolt, bro, is one of the most horrifying and amazing things in this movie, where he's just starting to go and Ghostface just throws the door open. This is the only real time we get to see Ghostface like running around and stuff, which is awesome. Just running. And it's obviously Amber, we know, because Richie pulls up like right when this scene ends, jumps on it and just absolutely just obliterates him. And it's very clear that Chad there was no intention of Chad to survive this scene. And I'm surprised they didn't reshoot it, because it is just so insane. Every time I watch it, I'm like, he should be dead. Absolutely dead.
He gets stabbed as much as Hera did in the beginning, except not in like the hands, like just in the side of his
all
sternum.
Like the same place, dude. Yeah.
Right in his body, like 5 times, and it is brutal. And he's like clinging on to consciousness in that moment when Ghostface is walking away. It's very clear that character was supposed to bleed out and die right there.
Yeah. Another sad moment too, and he's like, please, please, please. It's like, oh my goodness, bro. Like this is not very Scream. Like I feel like that's one of those things that's not very Scream. How desperate these situations felt, like they're pleading and holding on for life, like with everything. Yeah,
because I mean, he's not in running shape. He can't go. Again, you talk about the shot. I love just the framing of it with the door like right there. Good. It's a shot that the trailers did spoil. I remember seeing Ghostface come out of the shack in the trailers. That would have been so good if I didn't know that was coming in that moment. But yeah, the filmmakers talked about how originally Chad died there, and it wasn't until they realized when they were wrapping the film that they killed off every male character in the movie, and they didn't leave any guys for the sequel. And they're like, "There's nothing wrong with that," but we want to like keep some guys around in case we make another one. So they decided to toss in that shot at the end of Chad like getting loaded onto the gurney and being alive
somehow. He might be the next Dewey dude for all we know. He might just get messed up in every single movie and survive.
Hey, I would not hate it, because he is that kind of goofball, kind of silly character that would throw himself into danger. And it's also kind of tragic how like when he's laying there, the car is pulling up. It's like 10 feet away, like where those people are. They like can't see or hear him. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and that's when Richie, Tara, and Sam get there. They both get out of the car. He's like, I'm not going to stay here. Once again, putting on like an amazing performance. Amber very quickly like clears out the party right when Tara pulls up. And this is one of those things that like, I think I don't remember exactly, but I feel like when I first watched this, I was like, okay, this is so odd that if she is not the killer, this is a really weird plot beat of her being like, okay, everyone go right now. It is very odd. But it works out for the better. And also I like the fact that Richie is the one like kind of urging everyone also to go and being like a quote unquote adult and responsible adult and like helping implore everyone to leave to kind of begin this kill fest at the end here.
Yeah, because people aren't really moving quick enough when Amber's given the orders. So then Richie like flips on all the lights. He's like, "All right, everyone, like get the fuck out."
Yeah.
I love people like throwing cups at him. All the like groans from people. Um, there's a moment a few shots later where we go to Mindy on the couch making out with Francis, where we hear a voice and guys like, "Someone's lame ass dad is kicking us out." Which fun fact, that's Jamie Kennedy's voice. That's a little voice cameo there. I thought that was great, but yeah, it is an odd moment if she hadn't been the killer. Although watching for the first time, I wasn't like, oh, there it is, there's your killer reveal.
Yeah.
Also should mention that in that room, Mindy was watching Stab.
Yeah, man. And Chad's like, why are you watching a movie about her uncle getting like stabbed? And she's like, it's comforting.
Very morbid.
Mindy's crazy a little, and she has like no empathy for like any of her friends at all in this movie. So maybe she's just like a little unhinged, just a little.
He is maybe more so than even Randy was, because Randy also had that kind of like careless, like, oh yeah, you might die, you might be a killer, who knows? But like, yeah, Mindy has like no regard for other people's feelings when she talks about that stuff. And then we get a moment here where Liv returns. She comes back in the house. She's like, Mindy, I can't find Chad. And again, we're still like kind of weaving that mystery. It's very convenient that Liv just comes back inside like, oh, where's Chad at?
And where's my phone? She says too, like, I don't know where my phone is.
Oh,
or something
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Mindy's like, Chad went to find you. And then I want to give a shout out to like Sonia Amari here, who plays Liv, because
I was just gonna say this is like her one big scene in this, and she does a great job, like a really amazing job.
She does not get a lot to do in this movie, but she like really flips the switch here. Where I love the shots like shoulder down, you don't even see her head, where she like kind of stands over Mindy. She's like, "Are you afraid of me, Mindy?" He's like, "You said I was too boring to be the killer." And then even where she's like, "You're the expert, right?" She's like, "You know what happens to the expert next, right?" It's great. I can't say foreshadowing because Mindy didn't die yet, but we do have a sequel coming out soon. Oh no!
Experts are usually that good.
Yeah, that was like a very dark scene for a character that doesn't turn out to be the killer.
Yeah, totally.
I think that was them trying to again kind of throw you off the scent, even up to the last final moment there. And then she eventually like storms off in a rage. She like yanks the bag of chips out of her hand and walks out. You know, when we go back to the car with Sydney and Gail, and Sydney and Gail look at the address and they realize where the house is and what the house is, and then they call Sam and they're like, "You need to get out that house. We've been tracking you. Like that is Stu Mocker's house where your dad and Stu killed a bunch of people." And we get this awesome shot of like Sam and it like kind of pulls out of the front door and reveals Stu's house. And I feel like that's supposed to be a reveal for the audience too, that they're in that house. But I'm like, that was really obvious.
This is a really weird thing because it definitely is supposed to be a reveal. I'm like almost 100% certain it's supposed to be a reveal because it's framed that way. The music beat is that way. Sid and Gail's reaction is entirely like we weren't supposed to know this information before it being delivered here. Yet it is not hidden at all, it feels. It almost immediately when they show Amber coming down the stairs, if you've seen Scream 1 at least 2 or 3 times, you've probably recognized it immediately. And especially when they show Mindy watching Stab. It is literally the exact same framing and shot. So I don't know really why they played it up that way. I mean, it leads to a cool moment and a cool shot and a cool reveal, I guess, for Sam's character. But I mean, as an audience member, most people already knew this. 1, going into it, and 2, if you didn't, you would have seen it almost immediately. And we also have to talk about Richie like going down to the basement right before that Liv like little argument scene where he's like, "Oh, is there any more beer left?" He's talking to Mindy about it and whatnot, and he's like, "Oh, can you come with me?" And she's like, "No." And he says, "I'll be right back." They both have a laugh about it, and this is like his plotting moment where he's like down in the basement, probably changing, getting ready to attack her once Liv leaves.
Yeah, and that's pretty much essentially what he does, because we go back to Mindy watching Stab. She's tipsy now, and then maybe one of the most meta moments in this entire movie where she's watching Stab on screen, and it's the scene in Stab where Randy's on the couch watching Halloween, talking to Jamie Lee Curtis saying, "Jamie, turn around," while he himself is played by an actor named Jamie, and now Mindy's talking to him saying, "Jamie, turn around," and behind Mindy, Ghostface walks in, and then to tie it even further back to the original Scream, in this specific shot, that's not a stunt double. It's like actually Jack Quaid in the Ghostface costume, they said, which in that original scene from Scream, it was really Skeet Ulrich in the costume.
In the same area too. And you get to hear the grunts both times, I believe.
Oh, yeah. More interesting Ghostface sound design, or sound choice, I should say. And then eventually she realizes the like absurdity of what she's doing, and she's like, wait. She turns around and Ghostface brings the knife down, and then we cut to Sam, and we hear Mindy scream going, and they're full on wrestling in that room over that knife
against the TV, and they're fighting. Sam comes, I think she throws like a plant at him or something. Then you hear Jack Quaid kind of grunt, and he like runs off. Mindy passes out, and then Amber and Tara come through, and they're like, "What happened?" Amber's like, "Did you do this?" Liv comes running back, and I feel like you should take the reins on this scene, dude, because you are the biggest fan of this moment.
Dude, I love this moment. I have to give credit to like just the writers and directors here, because I think obviously it's hard to make a movie, but when it comes to like final set pieces, especially with Scream, where there's like a mystery at play, I think geography is so important, right? Like knowing which characters are where, what time, who's doing what. If that stuff like isn't consistent, doesn't make sense, it kind of all falls apart. Totally. And everybody kind of, all of these like paths converging at once in this like den room, where you have like Tara and Amber, who are going to get the inhaler, run in. Liv just found Chad's body outside. Her hands are bloody. She's running in. Richie just went to get beers. Quote unquote, he's running in like with the beer in his hand. Sam heard the scream. Like everybody converges at this one moment, and this is like the bomb about to explode.
Yeah.
And then Liv's like hysterical, where she's like, "I'm not the killer." Blah blah blah. Everyone's like, "Why do you have blood on your hands?" And then Amber's trying to get everybody to be quiet. She's like, "Guys, just calm down." Liv will not chill out. And Liv's, her final words are, "Fuck you, Amber. I'm not the killer." And then Amber's like, "I know." And then she reaches and grabs the gun and just blasts a hole,
blows her brains out, man.
Through her head, just blood splatter on the wall behind her. That gave me a shock in theater. My jaw was on the floor. I was like,
it is totally unlike Scream to have like a gunshot death. That is so graphic and crazy.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. I mean, I knew we were getting close to the reveal, obviously, but I just didn't. In that moment, I wasn't expecting. Yeah, and like, I think her calm delivery in that moment is so chilling. And then Amber has one of my favorite lines where she's like, "Welcome to Act 3," and we get the weird like oblique shot zooming on her face. It's very well done. And then everybody like runs for their lives.
Yeah, Tara like crutches her for a second, like trying to let Sam and Richie get out of there. And that's when Richie and Sam are in the basement. Richie tries to like gaslight her into thinking that Tara might be involved, which also I think would have played better if they went full on with the Amber Tara romance. I feel like that would have played a little bit better, because it kind of just seemed so out of left field that it's like, I mean, this girl, I mean, what a great plot twist that would have been, really, considering we got to see her opening attack. Could you imagine if it was fake? That'd be cool.
That would have been nuts.
Yeah. But obviously, there's not the case. Richie is the other killer. She is like, "I'm not letting you gaslight me, bro. Stay away." She gets out of there, and this is where Gail and Sid, I believe, pull up to the house. And they see Amber run out, and they're like, "What do you think? Is she faking?" And I love this moment. I mean, they're so used to it at this point. They're like, "We can spot these clowns from a mile away." They think they know she's faking. And she pulls out a gun like immediately and just shoots Gail. And when I first watched this, I was like, "Oh my goodness! Like, is that a kill shot right there?"
Oh my God, could you imagine? Yeah, Amber is not like fucking around. She is done playing games at this point. She has done enough tiptoeing. She blasts Gail in the stomach. Gail and Sydney have a little moment where Sid's like, "Hey, you said we were gonna finish this. Like, go finish it." And then I love this sequence with Sydney where she goes into the house.
Her little final girl circuit, bro, and she's getting used to the
Final girl
spots
circuit.
again.
I compare it to it's almost like some Resident Evil shit because she's in that house. She's like gun drawn. She's like checking all her corners. She's kicking doors open, shooting through the doors before she kicks them
The
open.
old closet,
like you said,
she shot it up.
Where she knew she hid herself all those years ago. I thought that was great. And then as she's going up the stairs, she finally gets a phone call, and we hear in this movie, "Hello, Sydney." They held it for the third act. We get our "Hello, Sydney." And I love how like nonchalant she is. She's like, I am unfazed. I do not care about this. I know I made a little jab at Scream 4 about when she gets the call from Ghostface and she's like surprised when she hears the voice. I'm like, there's no way Sidney Prescott is still shocked to get Ghostface calls this far in. This one, he calls, he's on his cell phone, she's like, yeah, heard it all before, got the gun in one hand. She's like, real derivative, 2 killers again, whatever. And then eventually she shoots through one door and we hear the cowardly yell of Richie.
It worked out. She weakened him, man. She weakened him for the next part to come. She didn't know. It was like a Metal Gear Solid boss battle. Give him a little shot beforehand, then you meet him later in the game. And it's like, all right, I can take him down now.
It was very inadvertent. And then Sydney's like, I told you to like come out with your hands up, and Richie's like, you're shooting through every door. Like, I'm not trying to walk out.
I mean, honestly, he's right for that, probably.
I'd be scared to move too. I would be scared to move a muscle myself. And then Richie's line when the door explodes open.
I want to know how you feel about this line. I've taken it different ways every time I've watched this movie.
The door explodes behind Sydney. It's Ghostface, and then Richie says, "Holy shit, it's Ghostface!" Which again,
crazy.
Maybe I'm just naive, and I'm just like eating up whatever they're giving to me. But this to me reads as Richie just being like, and asking like, "Oh, it's Ghostface!" Like,
that's what I think. Like, this is his script for his ending of the movie. He's like, "Oh my goodness, here he is!" You know, but I think. I don't know. I've seen it sometimes. I've liked it, and sometimes I'm just like, I cannot stand that line at all. Today I liked it.
Very over the top.
Today I liked it. It was good.
It is very over the top and silly in that moment because it's like, holy shit, it's Ghostface. It's like he's watching a movie in that moment, which again, I guess that's kind of in his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then dude, Sydney takes a damn blow when her and Ghostface go over that railing and hit the ground. I'm like, that might have like ended my night. That would have been it for me. So then we get, and at this point, you can tell that it's no longer a stunt double. When they're on the ground, you can tell it's no longer a stunt double under the Ghostface mask. It's clearly Mikey Madison because she's very small on the ground. Like when he's crawling, I'm like, you can tell that is like 20-something-year-old Mikey Madison under that costume now. Because Ghostface height is magical, of course. The gun hits the ground. Sam comes and grabs it. Perfect. Richie's coming down the stairs. He's like, Sam. And then he just buries that knife in her side.
Yeah.
And takes the gun from her. And
honestly, if the story didn't have like the reasoning behind it did. If that was the end of Sam, that would have been insane too. Quite honestly. Like if Richie just killed Sam right there, what a great little twist that would have been. But she doesn't. She survives this, thankfully. And what a great reveal. Like, what a great back-to-back reveal. And Jack Quaid, man, just absolutely flexing his acting muscle here and going unhinged. I mean, this is one of the only Scream movies where we get 2 completely unhinged killers. Just
like 2 stews.
Yeah, 2 stews, literally. We have calmer stew and we have like salivating, screaming stew.
Dude, it's great. And they do something that I love in these movies that we don't get very often, but when the killer talks just openly into the thing, because he's taunting Sam, and he's like, I know it's a bummer, it's me. And then he pulls out the thing, he's like, but it really was the best choice for the movie, and he's like laughing as he's saying it. And I love how they kind of like mix in the vocals of Jack Quaid.
His eyes during this scene, dude. He's got crazy eyes, bro.
Yeah, you can tell that he is having a ball with this finale here. I love Jack Quaid. I love him in this movie. And then him and Amber, him and Mikey Madison, and this whole back and forth here, they really are one of my favorite Scream killer duos. Just because like how dedicated they are to their own cause and to each other, right? Like we're so used to Ghostface like turning on the other one at the last second, or
Great point. I didn't think about that.
having an ulterior motive. Like they never turn on each other or try to kill each other. They just, I mean, they get thwarted, but they're straight up like, "Hey, that's what we're doing this for, hun." And then they reveal their motivations, which I going into this movie would have never thought that was the angle they were gonna go with the character motivations. But damn it, I love it so much. They are toxic stab fans.
Oh my goodness. And when Jack Quaid dude starts going off, how can fandom be toxic? We love something. We want to enjoy it.
Some of his lines felt like they were taken out of like Twitter threads when he's like,
"Oh my goodness, yeah."
When he's like, "These movies mean something to people." He's like, "When are they going to understand?" And I'm like, God, I was like, I feel like I've seen that. Like when
someone has to save the franchise.
Yeah, it's so good, and the way it just plays into everything that people say about these movies, a lot of the preconceived notions people had coming in about new filmmakers. It's like layers on layers of meta commentary that really only Scream can get away with.
Honestly,
I love it so much.
Probably.
Yeah, Richie says that no one's made a good stab movie since the original. How many times have you heard that? Just fill in any franchise.
Literally, yeah.
I like where he tells Sydney, he's like, "Yeah, the last one sucked balls." And then I love where he looks at Sam and he's like, "Hollywood's out of ideas, so we thought we'd give them some new material, bring it back to basics, because that's how you make a good stab sequel, Sam, based on actual events."
Yep.
Because we know in universe they stopped making they kept making stab movies even when the Ghostface killing stopped. They just started making shit up, and that's how the franchise kind of went off the rails. And we're getting Psycho Richie and Psycho Amber here, and dude, I laugh my ass off every time Amber grabs the knife and does the the little psycho theme.
Every time, dude.
I'm like, dude, she is losing it. She is losing her goddamn mind in this sequence. And then
oh man, yes.
They reveal they met on the stab subreddit. I mean, just digging deeper into that.
Hilarious that even Reddit is mentioned in this movie in that way is so funny to me. And I love too Amber's like explanation of how she knew about Sam's secret, where she's like, "Your mom's a drunk. It's a small town."
Dude, I'm telling you, Mikey Madison shot up my personal list so in like 40 minutes. I love her so much for this damn movie. She's so good in it. And it's funny because like obviously I watch like all the behind the scenes stuff, interviews. She's like the quietest, most reserved one. Every time they go to that set, she's just always like in the corner, like, "Yeah, I was just very honored to be a part of this. It's just cool they brought me in." And then in the movie, she's like salivating at the mouth, losing her shit. She has one of my favorite lines to Sydney in this movie, where she's like, because they're pretty much explaining their motivations, right? They had to bring back the old cast to give it stakes. She's like, "Can't have a bona fide Halloween without Jamie Lee," which I think it's funny that Sydney's been compared to both Jamie Lee and Michael Myers, because Joe Roberts called her Michael Myers, and now Amber's calling her Jamie Lee. Her full quote is, "Dewey had to die to make it real, to show that this wasn't some bullshit run-of-the-mill sequel, because our movie has fucking stakes, because anyone can die in a requel." Such a good line. And then it also kind of bolsters the stakes in this moment, because she says that anyone can die in a requel. And then Sydney goes to move and gets stabbed in the stomach. And I'm in the theater like, you better not. I was like, you are not going to kill Sydney Prescott right here.
If she died, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah. But the fact that they set it up with anyone can die in a requel felt like they were talking to the audience.
Totally.
Great job of just playing with the stakes there. Because in that moment, I'm like, what is happening? Very good. I think Richie says like the fans are gonna win this time. He gets like some real like incel shit when he's talking to Sam, where he's like, "Oh, dude, it's hard to find you, and it wasn't hard to fuck you either. Being sexually available,
liberated woman." Yeah. Oh my god.
You're like, "Yep, this all checks out. He's going full incel on this whole thing.
Yeah.
I love that that the phone rings and Richie jumps like he's like scared out of his mind. He's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Just kind of revealing like the coward beneath this like
Totally.
act that
Yeah,
he's
I love
putting
that
on.
dynamic too. That Amber is just like this vicious, like sick murderer. He takes a thrill in it, and Richie is more of the thinker, but not really a doer. All the things that he did were either quick and simple kills or failed kills, you know?
Yeah. Not so much heavy lifting, at least not physically.
Mhm.
And we, of course, at this point now, Amber's going to find Tara. She's like, she's not here. Turns out that she was let loose by her sister, which of course she did. Personally, I never thought that she let her.
Yeah, that was
sit
a
there
silly moment
tied
of
up.
even showing that sequence of her walking up to the closet and
Yeah.
being like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do this." Like,
I think again, to your point earlier, if they had kept the storyline where Amber and Tara were
Yeah.
romantically involved, they
Yeah.
were girlfriends, then I'm like, maybe there is some real hesitation there because you're like, you guys could really be in cahoots here.
Totally.
But yeah, as best friends, I didn't buy it in that moment. I was like, of course she let her free. And then when Tara jumps out from that corner and starts beating Amber with that crutch, I'm like, dude, if you've ever like felt a crutch, those things hurt. If you get hit by one,
Bad, yes. Even to
that's
bump,
not-
bump yourself with one of them really hard, or hit your legs with one of them is bad, dude.
Yeah, that does not feel good.
Yeah,
So I know that had to hurt like shit, getting beaten senseless by a crutch on the ground like that.
Yeah.
I love that once we get Amber back in the kitchen, now she's like scrapping with Sydney and Gail. I love them like doing WWE tag team moves on her.
Crazy sequence, dude. They just beat the crap out of her.
They like slide her over the table. Dude, when they grab that big ass glass of hand sanitizer and mash it over her face like some Monday Night Raw. So good. It's like all over her face. She's got like the glass shards.
Yeah.
And then even Amber's true self kind of shows that exterior cracks where she's like, please, I'm just a kid. It was the message boards. I was radicalized. And then Gail's like, by movie fans.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And she also
so mad.
I mean, her last little death line too, or not her complete death, but one of her last lines in the movie is like, "Time to pass the torch." And Gail, I mean, Courtney Cox hasn't got a lot to do in this movie, but this line delivery right here, baby, chef's kiss. I'm not even gonna say it. We're just gonna play it right here, baby.
Time to pass the torch. It's all yours, bitch. You want to do the honors? This one's yours. No, stop. I'm sorry about doing. Fuck you.
Divine, beautiful line delivery. It's so good.
It is really well done. This whole finale is so well written, and I think at the end of the day, it's why I hold this movie so high on my list, because it just nails the landing. Everything from the motivations, killer reveals, all so good. At this point, we've got they get her onto. No, she's Amber's on top of Gail. They're fighting, and then Gail gets the upper hand, pushes her off. They turn on the damn stove or whatever that goddamn stovetop is.
Yeah.
Gail straights up like, this is for Dewey, shoots, lights Amber up. I mean, she's like got her doing dances in that kitchen.
Yeah, flipping around and all that.
Yeah, and then to add insult to injury, she falls like onto the stovetop. Whole body gets lit on fire. She's like flinging around in flames. And that was the shot that was in the trailer of like the burning person doing this. And I remember seeing that and being like, I can't tell who that is, and I'm not going to go back and try to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was like, I feel like that was the scene in the trailer that I was like, you probably could have kept that one.
Totally.
And I think they cleverly did it in the trailer that like the shot before it was like chrome mask, Ghostface with the flamethrower. So they do kind of throw you off the scent a little bit, but yeah, that is one moment where I'm like, okay. She's presumably dead. You would think that like multiple gunshots.
She literally got burned to a crisp. It wasn't like she got her hands caught on fire. She slowly got involved. No, she was immediately lit ablaze. And also another meta weird reference of her being in another movie where she was a crazy person with a knife getting viciously set on fire and screaming like a maniac once again from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you've seen that movie, everybody.
Yeah, Mikey Madison, what is up? Getting typecast.
What is up? Yeah, seriously. What's going on?
Characters doomed to these very specific fates, which I thought was great. And then of course we go back to now. Richie's still pursuing Sam up the stairs. He's like, it's the thing with Slasher Sam. So many blood trails. He's following her up. He gets up the steps, and then boom, Sam jumps out on him. They're fighting. She's like on his back, and he's like being a whiny little baby. He's like, "Stop ruining my ending." As they're going, they go flying down the stairs. I'm like, that would have been very painful for both of them. Sam's crawling, and then she sees the reflection of Billy like on. I forget if it's like the glass or the vase or something.
Yeah,
but it's right by the
knife.
The curtain. You see like the little handle of the knife. Richie obviously doesn't see it. She's crawling towards it. Richie's still like going on about like the rules of slashers, how they're gonna pin this all on Sam. She's the bad guy. She has to die. And then Sam has her moment where she's like, "Hey, I'm adding one more rule." And then Richie's like, "What's that?" He gets on top of her, and then she's like, "Never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer."
See, and this is why Mr. Barrera is good in this movie, or at least okay. I mean, come on, dude. This scene is awesome.
This. Yeah,
he sells it so well. The rage,
so good. Just the knife going through his mouth and out the other side is just a.
And that's not even the worst part of it. Visual. Really, is the craziest thing about it all.
And then she like straight up channels her inner goddamn Billy Loomis. She jumps on top of him and just like changes.
I mean, every time I've watched this, I've had like my hands on my head, like this is just, oh my goodness. I mean, he's a villain too. He's like the evil guy in this movie, but it's just like he's screaming, like reeling around the floor. It's like, oh man, this is so messed up.
It's feral. Like she is like blacked out in this mode. And I don't know. I think it's so cool that she has that moment. I think it's interesting that she is the daughter of the original villain, and she's using those, I guess, psychotic instincts.
Skill set, perhaps.
Yeah, for good here. She just kind of really she lets herself go, and she just goes to town. And then his last words, like crying, he's like, "What about my ending?" And she's like, "Here it comes." Slits his throat, cuts it wide open.
His dad said, bro. And his little yelp that he lets out here too, I think, is what really sells it. He's like, oh, right when it happens, it's like, oh my goodness. You know, it's because it happens not when she finishes cutting him, it's like right when she starts, and he just like starts like screaming just a little. It's like, oh man. I mean, I don't feel bad for you, but I do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is the guy that killed or conspired to kill Wes and Judy Hicks. So I don't feel bad for him.
Honestly, true.
So he is pretty much done. And then Sydney and Gail come out the kitchen. Sydney's all like, "Hey, be careful. They always come back." Sam takes the gun and shoots him like 3 times. Yeah. Once in the head, and then doesn't even have to say anything. It's like, all right, that's understood. But we get goddamn Amber screaming, running out of
crazy,
the
like
kitchen.
Semi-reverse dolly shot of her like coming out.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much makeup and prosthetics they put on that poor woman's face.
Her face is gone, bro.
For this 2-second shot where it's almost like Freddy Kruegerish, the way like the burned flesh and whatnot.
Yeah,
she's got the knife, and then splat. Tara shoots her in the head from behind, and then delivers a great one-liner. Brings it all together. I still prefer the Babadook. In the script, the line was, "You were a shitty girlfriend," which was the original line.
Honestly,
before they
might have been that might have worked better too. I just feel like now in talking about this movie, like in totality, it just feels like so there that they should have just. I mean, honestly, it could have been a line. I know movies are cowards about doing any gay or lesbian things beyond like a little peck, or at least in most mainstream movies, studio films. I mean, come on, you could have done the Disney approach if you really were so scared about doing it, and just like give them a little peck and say we're girlfriends or something. But yeah, I mean, I like the Babadook line. It is a little campy. I feel like this is that line that we're talking about, like that thin line where this is one of those that is just like, a teeterer. It could go. I could see it. Some people hating this line, and I'm absolutely loving it. I just think Jenna Ortega, for me at least, sells it so well. So I can take it for what it is.
He does sell it. I lean positive on that line just because I like that it does kind of bring everything full circle to the beginning of the movie when it's like, what's your favorite scary movie? Oh, The Babadook. It's a beautiful meditation on motherhood and grief. And then we go through the whole elevated horror thing, requels. And at the end, she's like, yeah, I still prefer The Babadook. I thought that was a very funny, satisfying line there to end it all. And we're pretty much in the final moments here. Killers are dead. We get our hospital/news stand-up scene where we get our confirmation that Mindy and Chad are alive. They're both getting loaded into gurneys. Thank God. We have our surviving cast of this movie, which is, I believe, more than most Scream movies, man. Because most Scream movies, it's like Gail, Sydney, and Dewey are like the three that
like
live.
3 or 4
usually.
most. We got 6 in this movie, so I'm happy about it.
A lot. And then I also have to give a shout out to just the fact that I love that all out of the young cast, we get 2 Black characters and 2 Hispanic characters that live to be the future of the franchise, you know? I love Scream to death, but it certainly was not a diverse movie, nor were its sequels. There was always like 1 or 2 non-white characters and whatnot. But I thought it was cool. Like, I'm just like looking at the future of this franchise and the actors whose hands it's in. It's very refreshing to see.
Yeah, and I appreciate, I mean, this is like a hot button issue right now, and it's something that is also like totally part of this internet debate constantly in terms of talking about people being quote unquote woke, which is a word that I absolutely detest.
My God,
yeah, it's the worst. But I do feel like there are movies that do definitely take way too heavy-handed of an approach in their attempts to provide diversity, and as well-intentioned as those things may be, they often feel so forced and horrendous, and it's like you might as well just not have done this. This doesn't feel that way at all, and I really appreciated how naturalistic everything felt. Even the fact that Mindy is queer, to me felt very just. It didn't feel like they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm a lesbian." Like it just was, and that's just it. And I really appreciated the movie for not trying to shove anything down anyone's throats, but also just letting these characters exist within their world as they are. And it is nice to see more people of color in Scream that are in central roles. I mean, I still miss Joel. I hope we can get him back in Scream 6 in New York.
Please.
But yeah, very nice to see it for sure.
Yeah, and again, we've definitely had awesome Black non-white characters in Scream. Obviously, shout out to Hallie in Scream 2. She's awesome. But I just, again, I love the core cast of these new movies so much. And I think it is what pushes it over the top for me from the other sequels. I just love this group that we've got and that we're going into this new movie with. We get another moment here where Sydney and Gail are kind of sitting in the back of the hospital or the ambulance, and Sam kind of goes over, thanks them, kind of finally giving like them the respect and whatnot after
the flowers.
Yeah. After being a bit rude to them earlier. She kind of asked them, you know, am I going to be all right? Sydney's like, eventually. It's good. Yeah, I know she's kind of like, not right now.
Like, you have to be a detective with a really messed up past to be okay.
Yeah, give it a few more movies.
Yeah.
And then I love the character growth for Gail in this moment, where she says she's not going to write a book about Richie and Amber because that's exactly what they would have wanted. They can die in anonymity.
Yeah.
She's gonna write a book about Dewey instead.
The guy that used to protect this town, man.
Yeah.
And people in it. Great send off for the Dewmeister. I wish we got a little bit of a. Give me one more Neil Drummond. I mean, we don't know if we're ever going to hear that again, so give it to us, you know. But yeah, I think it's a sweet send off for Gail and Sid in this movie, and that's pretty much it. The ambulance tries to leave without Sam for some reason with Tara in there. She's like, Sam, get in, and they hop in. She's like, I'm never going to leave your side again. We get them rolling out, the pan up. We get the classic. And also, I don't know if this is like it has to be intentional, but in always having a Black woman news anchor at the end outside, like we are reporting live on the scene. I think that was in Scream 1 for certain, right?
I think in Scream 1, isn't it like it's somebody else? There's somebody out there, but Gail's out there with them, right? Isn't she also? I
think she's when the camera first begins, it is that Black reporter, and then it eventually ends with Gail like telling the thing. But yeah, they do that little thing again, which I thought was a nice little nod, especially since we're in the house from the original. And that's pretty much it. We get 4 West, and we get another great needle drop, Fall Out of Love at the end. And classic credits are back, which I love. The picture credits with the classic font that we have here on the show.
Straight up 90s stuff. It's really cool to see they go through everybody. Fall Out of Love is a great song. And then we also get I Don't Want to Talk by the Wallows, which is Dylan Minette's band. I love that song. I saw this movie and I added like half the soundtrack to my personal playlist. It's very good. I love how at the end, when we do get that moment with Sam and Tara where she's like, I'm never leaving your side. And they kind of ride off into the sunset. It's a good like bookend and close to this chapter, but it also leaves the door open. And she said, I'm never leaving your side. And here we are, Scream 6. She went with her to New York.
We got last glimpse of Ghost Billy too that we forgot to mention when she's before she gets to the ambulance. He gives her a little. That one moment was a little crazy, in my opinion, to squeeze that in at the end there. But I liked seeing Skeet Ulrich in this. That was nice. And right off into the sunset. And once again, another Scream ending that the franchise could end right here. Obviously, it's not going to, and I'm happy about that. But could be an open and shut case. But I'm glad we're making another one. I can't wait to see Scream 6, and we're like we talked about many times on this. Once the full trailer comes out, that'll probably be the only. We did do a video on the teaser that may or may not ever come out just because of copyright reasons, but we will do whatever it takes to get that first trailer breakdown or review or reaction out, and that'll probably be the only piece of Scream 6 media that we cover until the movie comes out, only because we don't want to get it spoiled for us. So. Yeah,
don't want to do too much overanalyzing and remove some of the big moments for ourselves. But interesting to see where we go from here, man. Possibilities are endless. But damn, what a great Scream movie. I loved it.
Our longest episode yet. I mean, I'm going to take a guess. This is obviously we've been recording and there's going to be edits in this and whatnot. This is probably going to be at least 2.5 hours footage. I can't wait for you guys to see it, baby, when it's all said and done. The final thoughts on Scream 5, bro, as we wrap up here on this great episode.
Yeah, just solidify. It's one of my favorite movies of this year. One of my favorite slasher sequels. It's my favorite Scream sequel. I'm very grateful that this movie exists and that this franchise is in good hands, both in front of and behind the camera moving forward.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments. We kind of said it already at the beginning of the show. I mean, this is easily one of the best sequels in both of our opinions. This is right up there with Scream 2 for me. And even in talking about it more, man, I feel like I want to watch both in these next couple of days and like see really how I feel. I feel like that's what it'll finally have to take for me to decide which one of these movies I like more. But absolutely adore this movie. Flaws and all. I know I kind of nitpicked it to death at certain parts, more so than I have the other movies. But I think it's because the highs of this movie are so high for me that those few flaws really do grind my gears a bit. Because I feel like this is, if those things that we mentioned, like some of the weird exposition and whatnot, and we get some of Tara's storyline added back in, I genuinely think that this could be a leagues better than Scream 2, as much as that pains me to say. Everyone probably saw it in my face. But I really think that the team behind this knows what they're doing. I can't wait to see what they do with Scream 6. It'll probably be just as good as this one, I hope. And I can't wait to talk about the show. That's going to be a bit of a doozy, man. Seasons 1 and 2 in one episode, and season 3 in another episode. And this episode that we're doing for Scream 5, more than likely when you're watching this, I would be shocked if this is in one episode. This will probably be in 2. But we appreciate you guys for coming along for the ride. This has been it's only getting more fun as we continue to spiral into the hype of Scream 6, and we're recording this right before the new year as well. Obviously, when you're seeing this, it's after that. So once again, happy holidays, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful and safe New Year's. Anything else you want to say before we get off here, Donovan?
I think that's everything for me. This has been really fun. I'm excited for these last few episodes leading into 6, man. It has been a ride.
Yeah, what a journey. I can't wait to close this out with a bang, hopefully. Or it could be a dumpster fire. That's honestly, it needs to be one of those two. If it's just okay, I'll be so sad. But thank you guys for coming along for the ride. Michael and Donovan, same piece. Later.